that.
What do you think?
Well, I think that Grippo should pay us.
I'm not going to say Grippo's name until Grippo starts paying us. We're salespeople, Grippos.
I tell you, those are cheese. If you're listening to us, first of all, welcome to Bonehead.
Yeah.
Second
These
of all,
are Grippo's barbecue flavored cheese nibs.
well, basically they're cheesy poofs.
Yeah.
Barbecue flavored.
Yeah.
Grippos. In the back end. You think people listening to the show love us when we do this shit?
I don't know, but once again, Grippos, we'll gladly let you sponsor us. $20 a month. I'll eat a bag of these every show.
He will too. So, James, we don't have somebody tonight. Who is that?
Sean Connery's not here. We don't have several people tonight.
Who is not here that's usually here?
The Holy Ghost?
No. Damn it. What? What? The Holy Ghost.
Well, I mean, I think he's with us always, but I don't feel him tonight. Have I been separated from the Force?
What's his name?
He hung in Florida for a while.
Chad Jennings, that's right. Chad couldn't make it tonight.
It's a hanging Chad joke.
Because our episode is, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have on my Star Trek hat. Because we're doing Star Trek, the last trilogy.
That would be, I think there's another trilogy that involves stars more people are interested in.
Yeah, it's called Lord of the Rings. That Viggo Mortensen, he's a big star.
Oh, I thought it was Twilight. See, Twilight is when the stars come out. Joe.
Our Pats is the new Batman.
Yeah, he made the comment that if Batman failed, if it didn't live up to expectations, he would quit and do porn. I don't know if you heard this. It's true.
No.
And so a bunch of people automatically went, God, I've never hoped more that a Batman film failed. And I was like, really? I mean,
he's got a 5 head. I never understand why women find him attractive.
But if you liked an actor,
but some women have slept with me before, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, and same
by
for
sleep, there wasn't much sleeping. I tossed and turned all night.
Yeah.
I wanted to have sex, and they're like, no. Let's slumber, Joe.
Yeah.
Let's just take this one step at a time.
No, you actually...
But I'm not exactly sure what sex is.
Well, Joe, when a man
There's sex in the saw, boy. No, the sex, who knows what the hell sex is, but the saw is family. Thank you, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, for teaching me everything I need to know about sex and chainsaws.
That's what they use in Hazard for sex ed, right? You just watch that?
Well, I didn't go to Hazard, but thank you so much, you twerp.
I was channeling. Is that Craig that does that to you?
No,
Hyden,
no,
he does Hyden.
No, that's where I'm actually from.
No,
Hyndman, Knott County. He does Knott County.
Yeah, Knott County. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Craig. If you're listening to this, I'll be shocked.
Well, I'll be shocked as hell. But he's always good about sharing it. But anyway.
I just spilled on myself.
I changed my hat out, if you're listening, from Star Trek to the Galactic Empire, which is...
Babylon 5.
No, we're doing Star Wars. Now, the reason why it took us forever to do Star Wars is that everyone does Star Wars. So we had to come up with something that we thought was different. And what we came up with, we threw out the door. A year later...
Turns out none of you were interested in Star Wars babies.
Yeah, Star Wars babies. Until now. Until there's a baby Yoda.
It's true.
Or the child.
Yeah.
Or the asset. Anyway, we're going to tackle the latest trilogy.
Yeah.
You have heard us comment, specifically me, Star Wars is one of my favorite movies of all time. If you're ever lucky enough to get to go to my basement, you'll see that I have an original one sheet for Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back hanging up. It's original. It's encased in glass. It's over there next to John Carpenter's The Thing, Ghostbusters, Evil Dead, Alien, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Lord of the Rings. Some of my favorite movies are all kind of clustered in one little section. Things that I love dearly and that influenced and basically gave me except for Lord of the Rings, my childhood. Mm-hmm. And Star Wars is an important part of my life. There's a ton of Star Wars stuff in here. I've bought I've never really sold anything. You had Star Trek. I had Star Wars, and I do love Star Trek now. We've talked about this. I loved the movies as a child. I've told you this before. And then I got into the shows as an adult.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of my journey to Star Wars because I loved Star Trek as a kid, and the reason I loved Star Trek as a kid was we
You were a nerd.
Well,
no one loved you. You were an outcast.
We didn't have a lot of
Did
money.
I mention you were an outcast?
We had antenna TV.
Did I mention that no one talked to you? You had no friends. No loved ones.
I didn't know you went to my high school.
I mean, I'm just
assuming.
Well, stereotypically, it's accurate.
Actually, I have another story, but I won't go off on that one. But no, so Star Trek is what I had first. But the reason I had it first was it was free. We had an old antenna, the old school,
cheap,
and they in syndication the original series,
cheap and easy.
Yeah, like your mother. That's not true.
Mom has never been cheap.
Top dollar.
Top dollar. No, Easy's getting to sleep with her. It's post-coitus that's going to cost you, buddy.
It's being allowed to leave. $10 to get in the door. It's $1,000 to get out. Anyway.
Mom's door.
Anyway, but so Star Trek was free, basically. We got it through antenna, and I was 4 or 5 years old.
You hear this, Mary? We're talking about Star Trek again.
And my dad watched it with me. It's one of the things that Dad...
She supports the show.
Yeah. Well,
I like to give shouts outs. Shouts outs. I'm going to give another shouts out when we get to return.
I know you don't watch Letterkenny, but way to go there. Now I'm blanking on the Squirrely Dan.
But
way to go, Squirrely Dan.
The other day told me I needed to watch Letterkenny.
You do, Squirrely Dan, because he adds S's on everything.
Shouts outs.
Yeah. Except for when they talk about sashimis and sushis. Guys, I don't think there's supposed to be an S on that. Anyway. But no, so Star Trek was free, and we were poor. But you know what's funny is...
Yes. Tell us more about your... If you're watching, I have a Yoda. Tell me more about your shit childhood.
Wouldn't it be... you didn't say that very Yoda-ish.
No, I'm not very good at doing a Yoda. Shit childhood you had.
There you go. Much better. But oddly enough... So,
breakfast you wanted.
My dad always wondered how I ended up as...
obviously you made up for it.
That's true. It's true.
Fuck or tubby? Or is it tub or fucky? Tub or fucky?
No, he always says the right word. He just says them in... Anyway.
Fucky tubber.
But... anyway... Anyway, by the way,
you make.
If you're listening to this, he has a Yoda.
Point you make.
Shoving it in by general direction. I wish I had Spot. I'd do it back to you.
Spit out. You do. Unlike Mother.
Anyway,
jizz in mouth.
So, are you just going to do this for the rest of the episode?
I could.
Because it might get us higher ratings.
I could.
I
really want to talk about Star Wars.
But no, my point being,
shit.
Star Trek. So Star Trek was my gateway to a lot of science fiction.
Yeah.
Star Wars came along later for me. Actually, I saw Indiana Jones before I saw any of the Star Wars movies because my dad liked adventure films and action films. Dad, literally, if something exploded, Dad was fine with it.
Okay.
But Star Wars, oddly enough,
explains that. I've got nothing funny though.
Star Wars, so I came late to the party for Star Wars in some ways. I'd seen it, but to really get into it, I was probably 10 or 12, which I would actually argue is a great age to get really into Star Wars.
I don't know. I got into it
Oh, my son is into it now, too.
Young.
And then I took my son to
5 or 6, I was probably hooked.
So I, but again, so I wasn't dyed in the wool as young as you were, but I do love Star Wars. And people who want to argue Star Trek versus Star Wars versus, to me, they're apples and oranges.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of them is a space opera, and the other one is actual science fiction to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Which is Star Trek.
And that's fine, and that's what I always say. So if you're hoping this episode will be about me and Joe feuding, we will, but it has nothing to do with Star Trek versus Star Wars.
No, we appreciate them both. I love them both. Just Star Wars hit me as a young child. Now, to talk a little bit about the history of the trilogy, the new trilogy, and you all know this, but Lucas...
But if you don't, here we go.
A little history. Star Wars... A New Hope, which wasn't called A New Hope till later. And if you listen to our Paul Hirsch, the editor of Star Wars episode, whom we had on, who won an Oscar for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, just wanted to throw that out. Was on Bonehead, bitches. He talks about, he did Star Wars. He edited it, and when he even made the comment, Well, when I edited it, it was just called Star Wars.
Yeah.
All that shit was added on later.
Well, and it wasn't even the big movie, right? And Fox was going to dump it more or less.
It was a sizable film, but it was not the one that they thought was going to be.
They were hedging their bets on the epic film Damnation Alley.
Which you have all seen many, many times now.
I mean, literally. And by the way, somebody made the comment online, and I think it was Scott Weinberg, so if I'm misquoting, but I think if you go on Twitter, Scott E. Weinberg, yes. He made the comment, he goes, you know what's funny is there's a parallel universe somewhere, in some odd dimension, where we're 9 movies into the Zardoz franchise, and people come online and argue about them. And all I could think about is, what would movie 2 of Zardoz be?
I don't know. It'd be an interesting flick, I'll tell you that. There's somebody else who is, I can't think of his name. His pen handle was Quint. He used to write for Ain't It Cool News. He wrote on Doctor Strange. He also wrote Sinister. He's a great writer. Oh, C. Robert Cargill said in an alternate time, I can't remember if it was Sorcerer or something else came out, and we had the next 40 years of adult films, creative, interesting, and Star Wars is viewed as a cult classic in an alternative life, and an alternative dimension. So anyway, Star Wars was made by 20th Century Fox. What you don't know, or what you may not know if you're not a huge fan, is George Lucas had made a hit film, how he got Star Wars made, which was American Graffiti, which was a movie that Universal didn't want. It's produced by Coppola. Basically made for a TV budget. They almost wanted to show it just on television, throw it in as a TV movie.
Started with Opie Cunningham.
Yeah, Coppola came in, threw a big stick, and they released it. It was a huge hit. People loved it. And they had a hit on their hands. Universal, he had set up Star Wars at 20th Century Fox. And they basically said, well, we're only paying, I actually can tell you, I remember the numbers. It's like $250,000 to direct, $250,000, which is $500,000 to write. You got to give him more money. He said, I really don't want any more money. What he wanted was the ancillary rights.
Ancillary. So basically the rights to all the
toys, the sequels,
cookies,
all that shit. He brought, so making a kind of a knee-jerk reaction of something that may have never actually helped, could have went 1,000 different ways and made him no money.
Yeah.
He basically built an empire out of that.
Yeah.
Mean that to do, you didn't. Now I'm talking about damn self.
That was his first order of business. First order was to build an empire.
Anyway, so that's the reason why
he sponsored us, Grippos. That could be, you could be part of this.
Technically, Empire Strikes Back is a huge independent film. So was Return of the Jedi. Just noticed you had a Band-Aid on your arm. Bandage. Did you get cut?
So here's the funny story about this. I was wondering if you would notice. I wasn't going to tell the story on there, but I'll tell it on there. So
the chips while you
we all have we give credit, and we should give credit to people that run into burning buildings to save other people. Firefighters, first responders, those people deserve credit. We also give credit to people that survive that. What we don't give credit for is to the people that start those fires and end up getting mildly wounded themselves as others burn alive.
So did you burn something?
So I have a bandage. No, I did nothing like that. I just wanted to say I committed arson, but I didn't. I did not commit arson. You can investigate me. No, you won't find it. Except a lot of boring pictures. No, my dog went running through the woods when we were visiting my in-laws, the woods behind their house. And when it came back, it jumped on my arm. Turns out the dog had at some point ran through a patch of poison ivy. And I have a perfect paw print of poison ivy on my arm, which I'm extremely allergic to. So if you ever want to kill me, don't use poison ivy. Just use a gun. I mean, seriously, why would you do this over time? So I'm extremely allergic to poison ivy. Dog ran through poison ivy, and that's what happened. So anyway, that's why I have a bandage on my arm. Thank you for noticing. But anyway, the first order was to create an empire.
So we made Star Wars.
The rise.
So Empire, he got two. Alan Ladd Jr. was the president of Fox at the time who greenlit it, and it actually kind of took his job later because he had given away the sequel rights. Of course, no one knew, and if it had been a bomb, he would have kept his job. But the fact that he made $100 million, hundreds of millions of dollars for 20th Century Fox, it took his job because, what do you mean? We don't have the sequel. We don't have any. It all was Lucas's.
Yeah.
So
and the other side
they
of that,
did release those movies, but they
got a small portion of what they could
have had. Yeah.
Well, which is kind of funny if you think about it, because I was thinking about this as I was driving over. indirectly, Fox is still releasing those films. It's just Disney now. But Disney bought Fox. So I'm like...
And now they own the original movie.
Yeah. So it still has
because when Disney acquired... So, cut to many years later, Lucas decides that he's going to sell it. He's in his 60s. He married another woman, had another child, and wanted to, I guess, live his life or do other things. Decides to sell off Lucasfilm. Sells it to Disney. Well, to do that, you had to set up a trilogy. You wanted a movie to sell, right?
Yeah.
To make your money back. Well, he set out an outline, sold the outline, the whole 9 yards, got Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill on board, read all this, it's all accessible. And Kathleen Kennedy, who had produced many things for him and Spielberg over the years, who's married to Frank Marshall, who's also produced tons of things for Spielberg, set her up to basically be the czar, or what have you, of Star Wars and lead the way. And guess what? They threw out his outline for the trilogy, and then we got what we've got.
Has a lot been released of what his outline was?
A little bit, things here and there. He's made more comments. We could do a whole episode on him referring to Disney as slave traders, as I recall.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the flip
he
side of that is...
He basically went back and kind of...
You made a deal with slave traders. So, I mean, that's kind of like...
Yeah, he got $4 billion. He got $4 billion, which most of it he gave to charity.
Yeah.
Of course, if he kept 25% of it's $1 billion, he's a billionaire.
It's one of those things that if you look if you look historically, there was that phrase "give till it hurts," and you look at Rockefeller and people like that. Like Rockefeller at one point gave a third of his stuff away, and not to make this a historical versus current day argument, but Jeff Bezos gave something like $1 billion away over the last 2 years, and everybody's like, "Oh, he gave the most to charity." As a percentage of his income,
not so much.
He gave nothing. I mean, it's literally the equivalent. Somebody actually did the math, and it would be like somebody of my income giving $30.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you have it. But yeah, so again, I was just curious about that because I do want to know.
Some of it. It was going to do with, I'm pretty sure it was going to do with Leia and Han's kids.
Kind of following, and this is going to upset some of you diehard Star Wars fans, but following the book series that tons of people, bestsellers.
Well, and they threw all that out.
They did, and that's why a lot of people are still upset about that.
They made a controversial decision, and if it was in the books, it got thrown out.
This is for you diehard fans of the book series. I'll never forget Dash Rendar. I know you won't either.
As a Star Wars fan, I've never read one damn... I read Battleground. I read the first 2 Battlegrounds. I've never finished the third one. Anyway, so... they were going back and forth of who they were going to get. I don't know if you remember us having this conversation or not. They finally said there's a lot of directors. In fact, they went to J.J. more than once. J.J. Abrams.
Which I'm going to make a quip later on about the new trilogy, especially the most recent film. But J.J. Abrams had brought back, and I will give him credit for bringing back, and that, again, that's one of the things that we were talking a little bit before we filmed. Star Wars fans seem to be engaging, and I'm not saying pro or con, but there seems to be a little more gatekeeping going on.
Oh no, they're assholes. And, a lot of Star Wars fans are absolute assholes.
And so that
the
seems
only
to
ones
be
that are
going
worse
on.
are the brown coats. I'm joking. Keep going.
Oh, by the way, real quick, if you follow actors and writers and directors on Twitter because they're hilarious. I think it was. Why am I blanking on the creator of
Joss Whedon?
Joss Whedon posted final day of shooting. Somebody had taken the last day they had shot an episode, not knowing, of course, it'd be the last episode they shot. And he tweeted it, and Alan Tudyk, who played Wash, and was also in Star Wars movies, retweeted it and was like, "Are we canceled?" And that was 2 days ago. I laughed. But anyway, so there seems to be this gatekeeping going on, and it's funny because that used to happen in Star Trek. I made the comment, I did this argument online as well, that, when The Next Generation came out, old school fans were like, "That'll never be Captain Kirk," and all that stuff. And I remember hearing people say that stuff. And now that I'm older, I'm like, it's fun. I mean, no, it's not Captain Kirk.
Well, it's their generations. It's something that I've had to come to grips with as well. So a little bit of the backstory. We may do more Star Wars later on. I am very happy with The Mandalorian. We've talked about it on here. It's a fantastic show. But when Episode 1 came out, And you said you got into Star Wars when they re-released them and put the footage and you saw them on the big screen.
I was going to say, and that's the other part I should have said earlier, was I watched Star Wars on TV, and that was cool. Mm-hmm. When it was on, when it was released on VHS, whenever that was. I remember the old VHSs. But it did become more real to me when they did the re-releases, and you saw it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars, and Star Trek, but to a lesser degree, Star Wars plays different on a big screen.
Yes.
And as much as I love other forms of science fiction, Star Trek, I love Babylon.
As much as I love Wrath of Khan, watching Wrath of Khan and Star Wars on the big screen are two totally different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, the big screen is cool for Wrath of Khan, and I finally got to see it on the big screen, and I was ecstatic. But there is something about the way Star Wars is filmed.
Yeah.
The dog fight scenes, and it's still to this day.
It's the Dam Busters, by the way. If you're listening, everybody talks about what is it, Hidden Fortress or whatever, Akira Kurosawa. No, watch the Dam Busters. The third act of Star Wars is straight out of the Dam Busters, even shot for shots.
And if you're watching for TV, look for the Darn Busters. That was terrible. Why did I say that? Anyway, but he's got Yoda.
Rider for jokey needs.
I've got another comment. I'm only 16. Anyway, I
know what he meant.
What was I going to say? But no, to me, that what I want to say about Star Wars is the reason I really did get into it was seeing it on the big screen, and it always was a cool scene. But if you held a gun to my head right now and said, pick your definition of a last-minute save scene. Out of all the action movies I've watched with my father...
Have a Deus Ex Machina, right?
When the Falcon swoops in at the end of Star Wars.
Kid. Let's go home. Blow this thing.
Yeah, blow this thing. Let's get... There is no cooler just... Oh, man, that is... and it doesn't matter. And I've heard people say, well, you kind of know it's coming because they're going to win. I'm like, you can know it's coming.
I don't...
There's something about that ship showing up.
That particular thing's coming?
No, you know something's coming.
If you've never seen... this is so far from me removed for me to be able to say it. For example, it's impossible to me to know what it feels like to be in a theater in 1980 in the summer, sitting there going and hearing "I Am Your Father."
Oh yeah,
it's impossible because I saw that 1980. I've been 2 years old.
Yeah.
So technically, I was born the year after Star Wars came out. Technically, I don't know why I said technically. I was born the year after Star Wars came out.
Well, it's because of your programming. You're not allowed to say that we hatch a new Joe every night in a machine.
I am pretty...
You ever see one of them Hatchimals? It's like
crap,
that, except terrifying.
I am the Snoke Bonehead. You almost fit. Anyway, moving on.
Unlike your mother.
Unlike my mom, who swallows things like food. Anyway, like I was saying... Where were we at on this?
Well, so we were talking about the impact
I lost my spot.
We were talking about the impact it had, because to me, that's what I wanted to say.
I can't experience. I think it's a great ending. It's a fantastic ending.
It doesn't matter. Like, again, that's why I can't play which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars. They're different. Babylon 5 is different. Babylon 5 is Lord of the Rings in space. And that's not an insult. It's a great show. Battlestar Galactica, it's all fine. Do what you want to do. Enjoy it as it is. But again, as much as I love those other shows, and as much as I love Star Trek, there's no last minute save like the Falcon showing up. And so when you think about, the impact that these things have had, and heading into rebooting it, or not, well, and in some way, actually, I'm going to stick with rebooting it for a new generation.
Yeah.
Because they knew they had me.
Well, that's the thing. So that's
my
what I was
boat
about
was going to be on that seat.
I was in the theater. That's what it was. Going back to episode 1. Stood up at the end of it. Couldn't have been more excited for it. I bought the screenplay at a Walmart. And I wouldn't read it because it was out before the movie came out.
I bought the comic book because the comic book came out before. And it had, I've still got it, photo cover, Liam Neeson, and... I almost said Liam Gallagher, who is from Oasis.
Yeah. Ewan McGregor.
Thank you. That would be him. On the cover, and but I wouldn't read it. Same thing. I was like, oh, I've got the comic, and
spotting trains. He is.
I went like the second day it was out because I couldn't get there the day comics came out. But I was like, oh, if I miss this, I'm gonna kick myself because it's a Star Wars comic with a photo cover.
Yeah.
And so I had it, still have it, but yeah, go ahead with your reaction.
Stood up at the end of it and said this is the biggest piece of shit, or something close to which was. I have come to terms with it over the years. There's a great episode of Spaced, if you're a big fan of how he deals with episodes.
Spaced is good. I also love The Simpsons critique of it.
Yeah.
Because I love the way The Simpsons critique ends, where it ends with them in the theater, and it's the Yoda-type character saying, "Thus ends this space political debate." Or does it? Da, 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 da.
So,
it's great.
It's made for another generation. It's not made for me. It is. And I finally come to grips. I was rewatching some of it. My son was watching some of it. He's 2, almost 2.5. Right before the new movie came out, this last movie, I was trying to rewatch some things before. I just wanted to be rephrased. So specifically, the prequels, because those are the ones I've watched least because I don't like them. There's still scenes in every one of those that I enjoy. Specifically, Attack of the Clones. It has a great scene when you see Yoda's shadow come up. We still haven't got to the original trilogy. We're 20-something minutes into this.
I know, this is going to be long, but I'm actually having fun with this.
We probably should speed it up a little bit. But when you see Yoda come in right before he does the sword fight with Dooku, I was there opening night. Fucking theater went mad when they saw that little shadow coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Because they knew what was about to happen, what was about to come off. We've never seen anything like it.
And that's the thing that the prequels do a little bit well. And when we talk about the new ones, I'm gonna say there's a little bit of gear grinding with the most recent film when you look at the prequels. Because one of the things Lucas said about the prequels before they came out that made me really excited was we're going to see the Force in action. And you can go back and find this interview. I think it was with Entertainment Weekly. But he said, everybody's like, oh, the Force, you can move stuff, you can choke people, you can do... And Lucas said in an interview, and I'm paraphrasing, but pretty much this is it, we've only ever seen one guy that was very hardly trained, and the 2 people that trained him were both nearing the end of their lives. Obi-Wan Kenobi may have had the Force, but he was old, and he had been kind of disconnected from it. And so he said, you're going to get to see what the Force can really do. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And that made me really look forward to the prequels. And we did see a little bit of that. The Force Run.
You saw him kicking ass and taking names. Anyway, so you saw the run.
You got to see them actually do stuff. You actually got to see that. I mean, you got to see all of that stuff. You got to see. I mean, because the only really cool thing that we had ever seen was Force Lightning. Force Lightning from the original trilogy is awesome, and I mean by that episode 4, 5, 6. Vader blocking Han's shot. You saw that, but really, I mean, there was nothing that was and we get to see so much more in the prequel. So there's some of those scenes that I appreciate. I do question why they didn't use it all the time. Like Obi-Wan seems to Force run fine until Qui-Gon's in danger, and then he's like, "Let me just wait. I'll wait. No, just fine.
Well, all right.
Anyway,
so I was really excited. Back to my original point of they finally hired JJ. They went to several different directors. I could give a list of them here. I'm not going to. One of them being David, director of 7, David Fincher. Don't know if you knew that. There's several people that turned that movie down. I understand why you turn it down, and there's several people that wanted it. They didn't get it. I understand why you turn it down. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. I agree with that.
I think one of the directors that really wanted it and didn't get it is Tommy Wiseau. I don't know if I think there's even an audition tape you can find online. I'm not making it up where he auditioned how he would outline the film.
I thought you were joking.
No, I'm not.
What? One of the bigger ones one of the bigger ones that wanted to do it. Oh, who's the director of Kick-Ass and?
Vaughn. Is it?
Yeah, Matthew Vaughn wanted it. And who let it out was that actor that always works with him is in Dead Rising. He's a great character actor. I can't think of his name. He's in all of his movies. He's in most of his movies. Anyway, he let it get out in an interview at a nightclub. It was like, Matthew would want that? Oh, yeah, sure. It's the reason why he didn't do the X-Men sequel.
Oh, really?
Supposedly, he was going after Star Wars. Didn't get it. So, I went back.
By the way, his X-Men film's one of the best.
Yeah, first class. It's my favorite.
I think, yeah, probably.
It's the best one. Anyway, so we went with JJ. I don't know if you remember this. I said, yeah, it's a safe choice.
It is a safe choice because JJ,
it was almost the safest choice possible.
JJ wanted Star Wars before he did Star Trek, and he even said in interviews for Star Trek. What do you mean? Some Star Trek fans a little nervous.
He was a Star Wars fan more than he was a Star Trek fan. And then he turned Star Trek into Star Wars.
Yeah,
Somewhat.
Oh yeah, and you can tell that. I mean, because, and I argue that's fine because Star Trek films have never been Star Trek shows.
Agree.
Star Trek shows,
and
with
Star
the
Trek
exception of
is
motion pictures.
extremely pliable.
Yeah.
It's extremely mendable and moldable, and they've already done series. I think it helps with Star Trek because Star Trek started out as a series. I think that's what Star Wars has sometimes going against it, that there should be more series of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, thank God, we have The Mandalorian and it doesn't suck, and it proves our point even more.
Oh, yeah.
That
there are so many stories to tell in that universe. And again, I say this as starting as a Star Trek fan, but anytime I watch Star Wars, and to Lucas's credit, and he did it for profit, I know, but he names every character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Battle Droid over there, Battle Droid. No, this is going to be Battle Droid 17.
For the toys.
Yeah, and he does it for the toys. But, the fact that I'm not as diehard a fan as some people we know, but I know who Salacious Crumb is.
I don't think I'm a diehard fan. So I belong to, that's another thing we could get into. Really quick, I'll give a plug out to the Star Wars Collectors Club. I hosted them at my house. Yes, I'm a member. I pay my dues. I never go to a meeting.
Have you paid your dues?
The check is in the mail. The John Waters, that would belong to that one too. So actually, oddly enough, Star Wars Collectors Club's the only damn club I belong to, because me, I'm a terrible joiner.
I've got a question, by the way. Now, we were talking about directors. Can you imagine? I'd love to see John Waters do either appear in or direct an episode of a Star Wars series. Because Werner Herzog, as an actor in Mandalorian, I enjoyed the living.
Would you want a libation?
Yeah, I
can't do it. Makes no sense. It's amazing.
But I love it. I love it. So now I just listen, Star Wars people. If you're listening, those people that Kathleen Kennedy, Kathy, listen.
Hey, Kathy.
Kathy. One John Waters. Make him a droid, do whatever, but he's got to have the mustache. I don't know how you're going to make it work, but we need a John Waters appearance in Star Wars.
So, all right, back to what I was saying. I forgot what I was... You got me off track again.
You were talking about...
JJ was a very safe choice.
He was.
So, they started casting it, didn't really know a lot. You knew several people were coming back, wasn't a lot of stuff. I didn't want to know anything. Went to opening night. Were you there?
I was.
You were there with me. I had been sick the previous year, so it had been a kind of a rough year. That previous time. There, had my Star Wars hat on. It was really cool because the 501st were there, dressed up at the Regal.
Yep.
It set the mood. It was a packed audience. And I watched the movie. And let's talk about The Force Awakens. It's written by J.J. And why in the hell can't I think of... Jeezy, crazy, did I forget? That sucks. Lawrence Kasdan. Larry Kasdan. Lawrence Kasdan wrote Empire Strikes Back and also wrote Return of the Jedi, or was one of the writers of Return of the Jedi. So it was originally going to be written by the guy that wrote Toy Story 3, what is his name? Avnet? Whatever. He won an Oscar for Toy Story 3, or was nominated for an Oscar for Toy Story 3. He wrote Toy Story 3. He's obviously a good writer. They rewrote his script, which I think was more based on a little bit of more Lucas's, right?
Yeah.
And Lawrence Kasdan and JJ, which I thought, oh my God, they brought Lawrence Kasdan. Lawrence Kasdan wrote the best Star Wars film, The Empire Strikes Back. Originally, the first draft was written by Lee Brackett, who's a famous science fiction author of themselves.
Yeah.
British.
Yes. Real quick, I want to throw out, and this is going to be relevant when we talk about some of the other movies. For those of you that are upset either by any of the new movies, let's step back in time and say when The Empire Strikes Back came out, there were people that panned it as well, and we all love it now. But I recommend you go back and go to your old sci-fi magazines, your Star Logs, all of that stuff. You will find angry letters from fans of their first movie. You will find critical reviews that are not glowing of what they did. Arguing that it didn't tell a complete story, that there were big holes in it.
There's still people who... Joss Whedon is one of the people that still complains about that it's not a complete story. I understand that it's in a trilogy, but does not have an ending.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that because we are probably going to share a few critical comments about some of these.
And some of them we agree with. When we get to the last one, Rise of Skywalker.
Well, and there's actually a couple, there's a couple other ones that I'm going to point out. Not that I wholly agree with, but I can see what people are arguing. So that being said, I wanted to say that. So when we do that, understand that it could be 10 years from now. We look back and go, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Because that's what people did with Empire Strikes Back.
Or The Thing. The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. And he always says it wasn't that the critics panned it in summer of 82. It was that the fans hated it and backlash that it bothered him.
Yeah.
That got to him. He couldn't understand why the fans, the actual horror movie fans, were the ones ripping at it.
And now most horror movie fans, like I think if you find a horror movie fan that will say The Thing is one of the 10 worst horror films of the 80s,
they don't exist. They found a unicorn. They don't exist. No, I agree.
You found a unicorn. Tie a rope around its neck and don't let it get away.
I thought you were going to hang it.
No.
Well, tie a rope around its neck and then say, "Do you want this to be a little tighter? Do you want me to spit on it first?" Sorry.
What do you do with your ropes?
Why do I want to do raw unicorn autoerotic asphyxiation? I don't know why. Nay. Anyway, so
anyway, The Force Awakens, we saw it opening night.
I saw all 3 of these movies opening night.
And so The Force Awakens, getting to the point, J.J. Abrams was a safe choice, and he made a movie that was safe.
He made about the safest damn movie you could.
Because it pretty much plays, with some exception, as Star Wars.
It's a new hope. It's a new hope. It's the structure of A New Hope. However, I was rewatching it. Now, I saw this movie 3 times in the theater, James. I don't know if you knew that.
I did too, because I saw it twice by myself, and once I took mine.
By the time I was done, I saw it 3 times in the theater. And every time I enjoyed it more and had the same criticism. How is that possible? And here's the reason why. He is older than me, but he made a movie, a Star Wars movie, feel like a Star Wars movie from the Star Wars that I remembered.
Well, and I was going to say, so it is safe. I mean, it's very safe.
He's a very safe. And I still enjoy it.
It still has scenes in it. I'll be honest, when they're running toward the ship and the ship gets blown up and you're like, oh, okay, and you know
but it's fantastic.
You know what the piece of crap ship's going to be.
I didn't. I wasn't thinking. And honestly, when I was watching it, it didn't occur to me because I was all caught up in it.
That's true. I will give you that. The first time I saw it, but then as soon as it's and it's also got, and this is a critique and something where I'm like, yeah, of course you're going to do it. Han Solo stepping on board and saying, Chewie, we're home. That line is a give me, but it works.
And it has the best trailer, too. I remember I watched that trailer incessantly. Over and over because it had the first coming attracting trailer. Oh, my God. And the trailer ended with that line, Chewie, we're home.
Yeah.
It just sends chills up your spine because you were watching Harrison Ford play a character he hadn't played in over 30 years. We were watching characters we hadn't seen in so long.
That's how I feel, by the way, about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and we see how that... I mean, it hadn't been as long, but...
Yeah, I get it.
But no, I mean, that's why...
The Force Awakens is a much better movie than Crystal Skull.
I'm holding out hope. I really am. I love Indiana Jones. Let's send Harrison out on the high point with the next one.
So, I loved the casting. I didn't understand Adam Driver, but I actually like Adam Driver in that role.
Adam Driver, as it went
John Boyega, I love in that role.
As it went on, I've appreciated Adam
Oscar
Driver
Isaacs,
more.
All these people, fantastic casting.
Oh yeah. Well, and even the new additions.
Everybody I said was a new addition.
No. I'm blanking on the name. What's the alien? She's also.
Are you trying to play with my hand?
No, I'm trying to the and I forget who even does her
voice. Maz.
Yeah, Maz. I love that character because I mean it is obviously I
like that character too, but I don't know that we needed to go there.
What do you mean?
Well, they had to have a cantina scene because it's A New Hope.
Well, yeah, no, but I think that cantina is just different enough. No, I agree, but and it's the same thing. There's good and there's bad in the cantina. You're being spied on.
And I'm still complaining about it. And then I'm thinking at the end, just past it, and going, oh, yeah, no wonder. Because not only do you have a cantina scene, but the next scene after it is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. When you see those X-Wings coming across the water, we'd never seen anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
When they're about to attack, and you see Poe Dameron, woo! And it's just amazing.
Yeah. It's, by the way, Poe Dameron shows up later on in a last minute save time situation. I mean, so,
to blow up the Death Star. I mean, Star Killer base.
Wait, so there's a Death Star, which is a star that causes death, but then later on you're going to tell me there's a Star Killer?
Yeah, it's going to blow up a fucking sun by sucking up the energy from another sun.
So, no, I think that's... I saw it. I enjoyed it. I showed it to my kids. My son is a diehard Star Wars fan. He talks about it. He loves it. I took him to see the new one a couple days ago.
How was it better? Well, we'll get to it in a minute.
Yeah, I'll sum up some of it. Now, that one on a second viewing, I saw more errors. And I'll talk about
there's a lot of errors the more I think about it. And I want to give a shout out to Sean Ketterman when we get up here because he and I talked about this afternoon. He pointed out a couple of things too. But anyway, like The Force Awakens, bought it the day it came out, rewatched it. I watched it again before I went and watched most of it before we went and saw Rise of Skywalker. Still enjoyed it. I still have the same complaint about it, but it feels so much like a Star Wars movie. To me, it was a love letter. It was fan service to the point that it didn't feel too bad to me, whereas Rise of Skywalker did.
I would say, in fan service, it was fan service that was still accessible and not pandering.
There's a few pandering things in it. There's a few lines of dialogue that did it a little rough. I don't know why, but...
one of the things that I'm struggling with is, as these other shows come out, as they continue to expand the universe, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad they're expanding the universe, but I get the Outer Rim, the, Baby Yoda, the child, whatever, that they wouldn't understand the Force, like, what's it doing? But even, I think it's Carl Weathers' character, if I remember correctly, I've heard of this, or there's been rumors. How in the Galactic Core, then, not the Outer Rim or whatever, the Galactic Core, have people forgot about the Force?
And Jedis over less than 100 years?
Yeah, because I get, like, Knights of the Old Republic, that timeline of, it's literally 10 to 50,000 years ago. Okay, literally, that's... I get it. We're a little shaky on Buddha and Jesus and Muhammad and all that stuff. So 2,000 years, I'll give you. But if literally it's, 40 years ago, there was a big base, and this guy was in the base, and he could do this, and people choked.
Yeah, I don't know.
So and the only reason I say that is one of the lines that...
Michael Arndt was the original writer of Force Awakens. Sorry, took me a minute.
One of the scenes that got me was that line of where Han Solo goes, "It's all true, it's all of it," which I loved. I also loved the fact that The Force Awakens made Star Wars 10 times more memeable, because I love where people automatically took that scene and added on Finn saying back, even the part where Greedo shot first. No, that's a lot.
So, I don't have a lot to say about The Force Awakens. It was a huge movie. It made almost $1 billion. It's the second or third biggest.
I think it made $2 billion worldwide.
Worldwide, but I think in the United States it's the second most biggest. It's right behind Avatar, past Titanic, right?
Yeah.
For domestic gross. Cut to, they're making another movie. They hire the writer, James. I know who the writer is going to be, right?
Yeah.
You know who it is? Why can't I think of Knives Out?
That would be Johnson.
Ryan Johnson. They hire Ryan Johnson, and I think, gee, many Christmas. They couldn't get any better. And the reason... I've turned into Letterman somehow. I was like, geez, they just couldn't get any better. Paul, you like the...
Yeah. Hey, Paul, you ever been on Subway, get this? You got any gum?
Getting gum. So, the reason why is because if you don't know Ryan Johnson's filmography, or if you just hate The Last Jedi... check out some of his other films, starting with Brick, which is just a fascinating...
it's noir. It's a
noir set in a high school.
Noir. Yeah, it's...
he did a movie called The Brothers Bloom, which is absolutely hilarious. He did a movie called Looper that I loved. Yeah. Loved Looper.
Looper had no reason to work.
And it works.
Like, the casting of it, I looked at it and be like, wait a second, you're telling me Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are the same people, and I can't believe... And then I watched the movie and I'm like, oh my God, I buy it. They did the manner. He directed the mannerisms.
That and there's just little things like the kid, the way those thugs in the future, the villains that work for the person who has all the power. If you look over on his shelf, he has a little bitty action figure of the. Did you know that? Have you ever noticed?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just he's a brilliant. To me, he's a brilliant filmmaker. And if you've got a chance to see Knives Out, go out and see Knives Out. It's a wonderful movie. I've only met a couple of people that didn't like it. Some odd reason Craig said it was boring, but Craig has no taste. Anyway, moving right along.
Well, it's no League of Extraordinary.
There's no League of Extraordinary. Thank God. Thank God. Ryan Johnson, they hired Ryan Johnson. Then Ryan Johnson's going to be the director. Awesome. I'm so excited. It's like, well, they got the safe movie out of the way, and now we're ready to go and do more with this universe. 2 years later, got my popcorn, opening night, there again. Ryan Johnson, bought my tickets. I go to the fan event. It has a little intro by Ryan Johnson. Thank you for coming. You remember?
And they were talking about John Williams doing the score again.
Yeah.
Overview of
we
that.
didn't get any of that for Rise of Skywalker. It was like 30 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was her and maybe John Boyega thanking you for coming out tonight for the opening night. That was it. But it was almost 30 minutes of stuff, as I recall.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it almost made it 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because with all that, you got to have a half-hour preview. Matter of fact, remind me when we get to the most recent one. I'll tell you what the guy that tore the tickets for me, when I took my son to it, what he said. I thought it was pretty spot on.
So, we got there, loved it. Opening, you see the ships once again. And they're showing up. And then we get more Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron, whom I love, whom I think is great in that role. That's just a great character.
And that's
Han Solo too.
What else?
Han Solo too.
Well, no, and I was going to say,
Electric Boogaloo.
and that some people got really upset at the very opening scene, going, "He wouldn't play like that. You wouldn't get away." And I'm like,
I think you would too. It's hilarious.
Well, and who? One of my favorite Han Solo scenes of all time, and I actually do it all the time. And most people. I do it at work, and people who aren't Star Wars fans or are just casual moviegoers, that don't obsess about these things, don't catch it. But I do the line all the time, going, "We're all fine. We're good. We're fine here. How are you?"
Yeah. Well, okay.
And to me, that's the same type of action.
He's tooling. He actually says that one of the characters goes, "We believe he's tooling with you, sir."
Yeah.
General Hux. It's great humor. It's got action. Here's where people get pissy, and I don't understand the World War II bomber scene.
Well, no, and that's it.
And this is where it starts to go downhill for about 40% of the Star Wars fans, and I can't understand it. That wouldn't happen in space. And here's always my argument. None of that shit would happen in space. I went and saw Neil deGrasse Tyson last spring, and Star Wars was one of his things that he picked up and goes, he actually looked at the screen and he goes, "I don't hate Star Wars. This would happen in space."
Oh, no, and Harlan Ellison actually...
There's not explosions in space.
Wasn't talking about just Star Wars. He was talking about all of it. And it was one of the kicking points. People called him out on it, and he actually kind of had to address it. Because he made a comment once, I think it was in the 80s, that he would never again work on any science fiction show that showed noise in space. And it was a big sticking point for him. Like he said, I will say, "Do you want to show noise in space? Because there's no noise, and I don't want to work on your project." And if you've seen Babylon 5, there are some scenes where there's noise in space. And he actually said, I called up NASA and said, "Is there any chance of this?" And they actually said, "Well, you still have plasma. The vibrations would happen. You just want, you couldn't hear it.
Right.
But when those vibrations, if it hit a metal spaceship, you would get a little hum." And he said, "So there, it's somewhat justified." And I was like, okay, you backed yourself into a corner. And I love Harlan Ellison. Don't think I'm... But
yes,
anyway.
that, and who gives two shits? I would tell you, listen, turkey.
Yeah, well...
Go back to your basement, where I am now. Shut the fuck up and tell your mom to make a ham sandwich.
Well, and that's it. And by the way, J.J. Abrams actually played with that in this first Star Trek film. It's actually one of my favorite scenes in the Star Trek film. When this... when the screen gets blasted out and people are getting sucked out into space, all the rumble of the ship, all of that stuff, and then all of a sudden silence, and you just see people jerked out. That's a cool scene.
It is a
Credit
cool
to
scene.
JJ for that on Star Trek.
Don't you see R2-D2 in that one?
You do see R2-D2 in the space debris. When the Enterprise shows up,
Yep.
R2-D2, and there's a hidden Darth Vader, somebody told me, and I need to go back and verify that. Anyway, that being said, so I'm fine with the bomber thing. Does Rational James know, okay, unless you force it out, not going to drop. Okay, cool. I understand that.
I understand what you're saying, but I think I cannot handle the criticism because none of that shit happens in any Star Wars film. And if you check out over that, how did you not check out 4 episodes ago?
Well, and actually, that's my biggest thing. If you're mad about that, I want you to, and I'm being honest, and I'm not trying to help me understand, because I want you to, if you can say that that's the worst Star Wars film, I want you to walk me through the prequels. Because I was saying about this, one of the things that gets me the most about the prequels is that they are too cartoony. And what I'm talking about is C-3PO's head gets blasted off, lands on a combat droid, and he's still talking. And if we are to believe the gestalt of Star Wars, when he gets blasted apart and later on Chewbacca's got pieces of him on his back, he can't function, but his head still functions, let's say. So if your checkout point for the first time in the gestalt of Star Wars,
I agree with you,
was that movie, The Last Jedi, then you need to help
a good friend of ours, C. Miller, I won't say his whole name on here because he's never going to listen to this shit anyway, but I won't. He just runs his nose up like he was disgusted with the smell of it. I don't understand. He loves Star Wars, but that bothers you? The whole World War II opening bothers you with the bombs coming in? I don't get it.
Well, and
I would almost rather they criticize the melodrama of the lady giving up her life, which you also can't really do because Star Wars is nothing but melodrama.
Well, and I was going to say, and I kind of like that, and I think that's one of the things as we continue to talk about this, but the introduction of the loss of a sibling.
Yeah.
Star Wars never did that before. I mean, you don't know. You have the loss of a parent, sure. You have Aunt Beru and Uncle Lars and all that stuff. But I was like, we never saw that in Star Wars before.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing I will give. I think, like you said, you got your safe movie out of the way. Let's play with this. Let's open up this world. And I was like, of course there's going to be siblings that have been lost. This war has been going on in variations for how long? And so the fact we finally get to see a character that's dealing with the fact, and matter of fact, I know I'm jumping ahead, but when Rose confronts Finn for wanting to quote-unquote run away, it's like, oh man, because my entire point is, why aren't more people third party, so to speak? Why don't you have people that are like, no, I'm not Empire or Rebellion, I'm James, and just let me do me.
So, the next part of The Last Jedi that pisses people off was the big build-up, because they had 2 years of waiting, of him obviously not looking, of Luke not looking happy, that Rey has found him, and looking at the lightsaber. And this is how Rian Johnson in his...
Which was reshot. The very ending of it was reshot a little bit, because in the original script, Abrams had an ending, and I've read, Mark Hamill actually is, I believe, the one that pointed this out. You go back and read his old Twitter post. But originally, when he was going to be found, it was in the script that there were rocks floating around him and there was power crackling between the rocks and all that stuff.
Oh, really?
You go back and I'm pretty sure...
And they reshot it for what reason?
Because they were like, wait a second, that doesn't... I mean, that obviously would be the tell that he's still a major Jedi. And they wanted to leave that somewhat ambiguous.
The only thing Rian Johnson asked JJ for was that R2 would make the trip.
Yeah.
And that was so that he could play out the Leia message and stuff later.
Yeah.
But you have that build-up, and here's what Rian Johnson does 2 years later. He looks at the lightsaber, Luke looks at this lightsaber, throws it over his shoulder and walks away. To me, that's brilliant, and I'll tell you why. As a man who has watched so many movies, so many TV shows, I've read a lot of books. Not as many books as you, but I've read a lot of books. It's the antithesis of what we thought we were going to get, and I love that because it was different. I didn't see that coming.
But it's also, and this is my
You think
defense,
he's going to start soliloquizing about what's wrong?
Only brought me, this has only brought me this.
Just throws it over his shoulder and walks away from her. Thought it was brilliant.
Well, and I think the entire part about that, though, that also to me, and the people are like, well, that's not Luke. I'm like, What? No, it's totally what Luke would do because who has been his role models? Obi-Wan? Where was Obi-Wan? Where was Obi-Wan when the Empire was rising? He was camped out on Tatooine.
Watching over Luke.
Luke. That was it.
Agree.
And his other role model, Yoda? Where was Yoda? Did Yoda we know Yoda could fight.
Exiled himself.
Exactly. So I think the people that are like, well, that's not what Luke would do. I'm like, okay, I know we've got some gaps in Luke's life here, but it is not. It wasn't immediately beyond my thought process that Luke would exile himself because his two biggest Force role models were the two guys that went, okay, wait, things are going bad? Well, we're not going to address that right now. We're going to find the New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go find the New Hope. You, the guy who helped train me, you go to a swamp where you'll be masked by the darkness and not be found.
They exiled themselves. No, I agree with you. So that seems like, well, that's not my Luke Skywalker. And Mark Hamill said it. Well, that's not my Luke Skywalker. Well, who is your Luke Skywalker, sir?
Yeah, well,
and Boyega's bitched about the last, they were split up and a story. Well, yeah, because he made his character even more funny in the next one.
Well, and I think, it's all these characters, and I know some people are like, well, it got political, and I'm like, did it get any more political than A New Hope was? There are people that argued.
I don't think it's all that political.
There are people that argued A New Hope was remnant commentary. It's actually a quote from a review I read that came out when it came. It's remnant commentary about America's involvement in Vietnam.
Really?
Rebels versus a giant empire.
It could be.
And what I'm saying is, I don't think George Lucas was sitting there going, I want to make a film about, where we show the Vietnamese as rebellion, and then we, America as the empire with all the technology because we have helicopters and all that. That's a reviewer bringing their view to it. And I argue this the same thing with Last Jedi. Is there commentary about we have this entire planet of wealth and gambling and indulgence, and the rest of the galaxy is suffering? I think that's a fascinating thing. It's not a political argument to me.
I disagree with you a little. It is political. However, I don't think it's in that overt political as people say it is. To me, The Last Jedi is about a guy. It's about two things to me. It's not even about Rey. It is in the sense of her characters finding these things out, but what we're finding out is that the Force is not just a Skywalker thing. That the Force isn't just... Because that's what we've seen. And then I got in this argument with our friend Clay Sturgeon, which goes, well, you've seen it in many different characters throughout that. I said, yeah, I get it. But in that original trilogy, you have to be a Skywalker to be a Master Jedi.
Or a Palpatine. Or to use the Force, you're a Palpatine or a Skywalker.
Yeah. And to me, it was a democratization of something that any of us can have.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the ending of The Last Jedi. I was talking, Ketterman and I both agreed with this. He was talking about it today of anyone can have it. That's the reason why I love that little boy sweeping, watching those ships, and then reaching over and pulling the broom away with his Force without even knowing it. And that little slave boy has the opportunity. And to me, it's, I don't know. I think it spoke to something that I truly, I politically just agree with Ryan Johnson. But you don't have to be from a certain family. You don't have to be...
So are you saying Ryan Johnson... I don't know his history. I don't know
his history either.
But are you saying he may be different than J.J. Abrams, who's the son of two Hollywood people and who helped his son get a job working in comic books?
Could.
Are you saying
I don't know how Ryan Johnson got into the business.
Somebody made that comment online. I'm still in that quote. That's from somebody else. But no, I agree with you.
J.J. has thrown some shade. He made a comment about how he didn't think Star Wars fans want to be preached to, or that they want to find out that maybe it means nothing. I disagree with him. I think 30 or 40% of them don't want to, but I, on the other hand, like the fact that Rey is nobody.
Well,
she just happens to have this ability.
And we'll stop before we get to The Last Skywalker if you haven't seen it and want to stop. So we'll give you a warning before we get to spoilery things for that. But I actually agree with you, and I think one of the reasons I agree with it is, to me, it's not a political argument. It's not anything like that. To me, Star Wars, the Force or whatever, is very, very human. And I think that's one of the things that... The reason I love Star Wars is Star Wars has always looked lived in. Star Trek has pristine ships and groovy technology and everything's shiny and new. And Star Wars, the first time I saw the inside of the Millennium Falcon, it looked lived in. It looked like my house. There's stuff everywhere.
It doesn't look that bad.
There's thanks, Joe.
Oddly enough,
listen,
there's
if you
less Wookiees in the Millennium Falcon.
But there's but anyway,
but more nerf herders.
And I think
you milf milker. I
think milf mooker. Milk some milfs in my time.
Oh my God! I've got milf on the brain.
Anyway, no, I think.
How you doing?
I think you need to look up what that means. Milk. Anyway, now.
Chalky milk.
When you want your chocolate milk and your chicken nuggies.
Chicken nuggies.
But no, I think it meant something to me that anybody could be, because I think that made Star Wars even more real. Because Star Wars always felt lived in that I could see, like, oh, everything has been used. Not everything looks pristine and new. But it never felt like I could live there. And I think you're right. I think Rian Johnson did give that to us, and it made me actually feel a little bit more like, oh, this is more realistic than the fairy tale that we've gotten so far. And I'm not using fairy tale derogatorily. Fairy tales are epic morality plays, and that's what Star Wars can play as. But, you know, and again, I'm bringing my own life into this. But, you know, I work at a college, and I'm a professor.
What?
And my mother, due to several situations, and I'm not going to get into the family history, but my mother didn't graduate high school. I'm as close as you can get.
But she's got a PhD in sexy.
Thank you. I've been told I look like her. Anyway,
your boobs are less attractive.
Anyway, so I see that. I agree. Thank you. I've been parting the hair on the left now. Anyway,
yum.
But I think that's really. I agree with you. That scene at the end and that belief. And I think the movie also gave us something else. That little hint of, and Star Trek did the same thing. And I don't mean to compare them because they're not really. But Star Trek, you have Section 31, and Section 31 is, listen, it's got to be this way because that's the only way everybody else gets to feel safe. But they are the part of the Federation that will do the dirty, nasty, behind the scenes. Will poison a world to give somebody else a chance. Yeah. They're the part of the Federation that you don't want to know exists, but they exist so the rest of the Federation can function. We got a little bit of that because DJ, Benicio del Toro, I love that character. His entire line, and DJ, you know, allegedly was picked as his name because it stands for Don't Join. He's not the Empire, he's not the Rebellion, and he's willing to point out that I will sell to both sides.
Both sides. And all the people that are at that planet.
And so I think that's true. I think that, which is very much true, and that's historical. It's not political to me. If you don't know this, look up this little fellow called Henry T. Ford and how he was selling to a certain army prior to World War II that later on assisted in wiping out some American GIs. And later on, still held as a hero because he did eventually turn around and help build planes for our effort. But Henry T. Ford, for a while, would have belonged on that planet. And that's not a political argument, it's historical. That's so it's very
I think
real.
It's a historical fact. No,
it's very cool, it's very real, and so you get that feeling, and I know some people are going to come back if you watch the show. Now, I would honestly, and I'm not saying this...
No, I think you should, if you have a counter-argument, by all means, post it or tell us.
But I think it's really relevant, and it's really something that I loved Star Wars before. And is The Last Jedi flawless?
No.
No.
And when you're done, I want to get into some of the flaws.
But I think it may be, taken as a whole, the first Star Wars film that I felt I could exist in.
Agreed. I felt that there were some... I agree with... I like that some people are just I shouldn't say real. I understand why people get aggravated with the Rose character because she's probably a little too good. However, the only huge critique I make of that movie is, did we need to go to that planet and release those people? I think there is a little bit probably heavy-handed commentary there. That's where my counter argument to what you're saying. I think he's pushing that. He's pushing that a little hard there. I don't know that we needed to go there to do it.
I always kind of glaze over. It seems
convoluted.
I always glaze over that a little bit. I think you're right. I will agree with that because I always just remember the commentary of DJ and stuff like that. No. But I love the introduction of DJ as a character.
I do too, and I enjoy scenes in that. But did we need to go there to convoluted to find the guy that isn't the guy for Antonio Banderas to come back? No, I think there was a better way to do that. I think it was a more efficient way to do that. Probably a more interesting way to do that. Specifically, with a little bit of, we could have probably done more of Rose's or John Boyega's backstory, or having them or someone else do it. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know that we necessarily needed all that. So. That's my big complaint.
The one thing I will say in defense of the Rose character, and Kelly Tran, I believe the actress.
Yeah, I don't find her annoying.
I think she does a great job.
I think a lot of stuff that comes out is sheer sexism.
I think the reason I'm okay with her being as good as she is because she's also doing it for her sister. And I think I've seen this happen with people that have lost somebody close to them. And I've had actually somebody say this, and I won't say who told this to me, but it was a quote that somebody told me that had lost a sibling. And it made me actually, and this happened long before I saw the movie, but when I saw that scene in the movie, it made me actually, it triggered this quote in my head. And the quote was, when you lose a sibling, you feel, they didn't say you, they said, I felt an innate push that I had to be as good as I would be, and even better to make up for them. And so, again, that's not in the script, but because somebody told me that, it made me think about, it would be interesting, and if you want to do a Disney Plus series, I know some people are pushing one for Rose, do that one. Tell the story of maybe Rose wasn't perfect, but the loss of her sister made her realize.
God, I don't know if I need a whole series of Rose.
Okay, wait, no, let me do this. How about we call it Roses? No, hear me out. And it follows Kelly Tran, and she's helped by an elderly woman, played by Betty White.
All right. Yeah. Actually, I thought you were going to go with the department store, and I was good with that one, too. Yeah. But, yeah, let's go this way. That's a little bit better.
But anyway, no. So anyway, and again, that's just me because of one experience and one very, very heartfelt conversation I had with somebody that made me think about maybe that's why she is being as good as she is. That she has to honor that memory because it's going to be really hard. I mean, my brother didn't, but hypothetically, if my brother saved an entire fleet of, I don't know, let's say
ships,
or a fleet of puppies, and then I come back and be like, I'm not even going to try to save one. No, of course I would have to be like, well, if he died saving puppies, I probably shouldn't beat one with a stick.
So here's my other big criticism, and that if you buy the Blu-ray, that making of is one of the best making ofs ever. Or I enjoy it quite a bit. It's very detailed. Rian Johnson had them fly that one monster all the way into those islands off of Ireland for where the Jedi Temple was. And that whole scene where we watch Luke milk it and drink the blue milk is pointless.
I'll give you that, yeah.
It's pointless. It was a waste of money. I have no idea why Kathleen Kennedy did not make him stop that. It adds nothing to the movie. I don't know who enjoys that. Do you?
There's at least one person out there going, no, if you cut that. I mean, I get it to a point. It's supposed to be a throwback.
It is a throwback, and there's always some fan service, but it makes no sense. It's pointless. There's a couple of scenes that happen that are pointless. Now, here's what I love, is things that people get pissy about. I love the fact that we see Laura Dern's character sacrifice herself by going to light speed. If you can watch that, there's a couple of YouTube videos. You can watch it on 4K in slow motion. That scene, it's mesmerizing. It's fantastic.
Well,
taking down the ship.
And again, it gave us something we hadn't seen before because And that's one thing, again, not to compare them, but we've seen ships ram in Star Trek. It took a long time, because that was always my thing. If I know I'm going to die anyway, the closest we got for a while was Khan blowing up his ship when he knew the Enterprise couldn't get away. But it did. Anyway,
Spoiler.
But, I mean, why wouldn't you? We're going to die anyway. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, well, just ram. Screw you.
Yeah, well...
and so I always wondered that of, boys, if you can't win, let's just...
And we may want to do an episode later and talk about Rogue One and Solo, but Rogue One has a great scene in it, and it's actually called the Corvette something maneuver, where the ship comes out and shoves the Star Destroyer into the thing. It's a fantastic scene. Don't want to get into Rogue One. I could do a whole episode on Rogue One, which is probably the best movie that we've got.
I was going to say, and that's actually how I was going to end the episode. If you held a gun to my head,
it's Rogue One.
It's Rogue One, and that's, by the way,
it fits perfectly.
I have watched these films, and I don't want anybody to think, "Oh, it's fair weather friend." No, I have saw all these in theaters multiple times, every one of them. But
I didn't see Solo multiple times.
I did, because I went and saw it myself,
and then
I took my kids. That being said, and actually my wife enjoyed Solo quite a bit. I think because...
I need to rewatch. Would you believe I haven't rewatched it since I saw it in the theater?
I have.
Own it, and I still haven't.
So what I will say, and actually somebody posted the other day, and I forget they posted, they more or less said they needed to eat crow, because they rewatched all the movies, and they said they put off Solo till last, and then they watched it, and I forget the actors who played Solo, yeah.
I don't remember his name either.
It's not Anton Yelchin, I'll tell you.
No, to me he's forgettable, but keep going.
But they said the way, the mannerisms they used to play him were actually pretty spot on. Like, you can say that he's forgettable, because I don't remember his name. But they say if you look at the way he does his hands when he's just sitting there, and you go back and watch Harrison Ford, like the actor did his research. Anyway, that being said, Rogue One I rewatched it again with my son, and I rewatched
it before the new Star Wars.
I can't get it out of my head.
I can't. It's an imperfect film, and there's scenes that I'm not crazy about, but that last 20 minutes of that movie.
But I think it's also, and again, I said it about the Last Jedi, but even more so, Rogue One I could live in. I don't want to, because God is bleak. And you know what's coming. You
know why Rogue One's better? Something else Ketterman and I talked about. Not why Rogue One's better. There are real stakes. There are no... Are we ready to move on to the last... Do you want to say anything about the last show? Because this is what I want to say. And I don't want to talk about Rogue One, but the difference between Rogue One and Rise of Skywalker.
What I want to say, I think, kind of ending up... So we got The Force Awakens, which is safe, but fun. Mm-hmm. And I did...
I still enjoy it.
When the Falcon showed up, people applauded, and justifiably. It was cool.
And when Han showed up, and the theater played just like it was supposed to.
And all of that stuff. So that was cool, and I'm glad, and it was great. So I'm not... People are like, well, people just dogpile on J.J. Abrams. I'm like, no. He gave us Rey. He gave us these characters. I'm not against it.
I liked Rey.
People don't like, The Last Jedi. I do like it. Can I see why some people... I'm like, yeah, if you want a historically accurate space film, I don't know why you're watching Star Wars. But I get it. You'd be upset. But I also don't see why people get mad about it. Now, that being said, it's funny to me, before we get into the spoiler part, the last thing I will say is, so you had a little bit of people turn on The Last Jedi. I think Rise of the Skywalker is the first film that's gotten a rotten score. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know that.
It's green. It's an exploded green tomato. And it's funny to me because as much as people hated, or some people, 40% I think is the number you threw out. But whatever.
I don't know.
I know. Whatever it is.
I think it's 40.
Whatever
it is. 50. There's a lot of there's several Star Wars fans on the floor whom I work with, and two of them passionately dislike that movie. And our friend Clay is not a fan. Clay loves all of them. And Clay says it's the only one. He's real critical. I think he doesn't like the social commentary too. I think it's just an antithesis of his own politics. But he in the fact that he picks up on more of it. I actually said that speaks, I think, more about you than it does the movie. He goes, yeah, that's probably true. But he would say, out of all of them that he can turn on the background, that's the only one he won't turn on in the background and listen to. He just doesn't get into it. It has something about it that makes me love it that turns other people off.
So yeah,
which is what art is supposed to do.
Well, I think that's
it. Storytelling
and people that want to say that it lost the gestalt of Star Wars or something. I don't think it did.
No, I agree.
I think there's so much there.
What are you doing?
I was actually bringing up Rotten Tomatoes for each of these. I figured we can kind of use this. Oh, here we go. I can view the entire Star Wars saga. Let me bring that up. So The Last Jedi, if we go by audience score right now, is a 43%. It's loading the rest of them, sorry. But okay, so Star Wars Saga, if we go by this, Empire Strikes Back has the highest
of course
audience score now. But again,
you want to talk about something while you're doing that?
No, I've got it up now. So The Rise of Skywalker is at 54%.
Okay.
Solo is at 70%. So Solo is more like. The Last Jedi
is at 40-something. So The Last Jedi is the most hated, according to Rotten Tomatoes.
By audience score, yes. I'm sorry. No, I think I said that wrong. The Rise of Skywalker is at 54%. Solo is 70%. The Last Jedi has actually experienced a boost in love following it's actually up to 91% now.
Yeah.
But The Force Awakens is still the highest rated, 93. By the way, if you actually do it if you include television series by audience rankings, the highest rating of Star Wars?
No.
Rebels.
Well, Rebels is a good show.
Rebels is a good show. And it blends, again, it meets everybody's needs. You get Princess Leia appears in an episode, you get Lando in a couple episodes.
The Rebels is a good episode, is a good show.
And it pops up. It's referenced, actually.
And there's some stakes in Rebels for a cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Some people don't quite make it out.
I was going to say, and that's what I was want to say.
Some people don't see so well afterwards.
One they don't see until they're on. I don't know when Gone came out of me. But I think that's it. I think it's one of the things that I appreciate about Star Wars, and we're getting.
Let's get to it. Come on.
Well, my entire point is
we're an hour into this. So
The Last Jedi has experienced more love since The Rise of Skywalker came out. And it's moving up in the rankings now because so many people are mad about The Rise of Skywalker, which is funny to me. Because, like you said, we know people that love all Star Wars and hate
The
Last Jedi.
I can tell you 3.
How is Rise of the Skywalker...
One dear friend and 2 close friends.
Yeah. How is Rise of the Skywalker being that much more hated? And how do you know how they felt about Rise of Skywalker?
They're so-so. One of them is. The other one liked it. I think Clay liked it. I don't know how he feels after the second. I haven't got a chance to talk to him. We're going to have lunch. But I think Crush feels, he won't say one way or the other. And I don't think Chris Miller's seen it. So...
I just think it's funny, though, that Rise of the Last Jedi has risen because Rise of the Skywalker has fallen.
Rise of Skywalker. So, let's... Right now, spoiler alert.
So if you haven't seen it, stop. We're going to start revealing things. I can't believe Rey is Jar Jar's daughter.
I can't either.
Misa Ray,
so
bitch.
You have been warned. This is where the spoilers start. If you hadn't seen the other ones up until this point, Jesus, you weren't going to see them anyway. Yeah. You've been a little.
But God bless you for sticking around this episode.
I have no idea if you're obviously not as. I don't know what I was going to say. So, Rise of Skywalker.
You're big fans of Bonehead.
The original director was going to be the director of Jurassic World, Colin Forever, I can't say his last name. He made a little movie, didn't work out well. There were creative differences. He left the project. He still, actually, I don't know if you know, retains a story credit on Rise of Skywalker. Kathleen Kennedy came out a couple of weeks ago, and I would not necessarily defended him, but said, hey, yeah, there was creative differences, and he did not have the luxury of being with us from the get-go, from the jump of how this is going to play out. I think that this trilogy is disjointed quite a bit.
I've got a question about that though, because it's one of the things I keep reading on Twitter, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I've read some of the history of Star Wars.
I'll tell you if I know.
Why does everybody pretend the first three were planned out completely?
I don't know.
I don't know, because I can remember reading interviews with George Lucas was like, and that's when I decided to make them siblings, and it was well after the first movie came out.
Yeah, I don't know.
So why is that even an argument? Because I keep seeing that on Twitter going, well, it's obvious they didn't plan this trilogy. I'm like, they didn't plan the other one.
You have an overarching feel sometimes, in my opinion, or like we need to get here. Yeah. How we get here can be many different ways. That's the reason when people asked him, well, how are you going to handle how Rian Johnson changed all this? And he goes, well, and then if you watch The Last Jedi, it didn't bother him a bit.
No.
It didn't affect it one damn bit.
No.
He did whatever he wanted to do anyway.
Well,
the editor has now came out, I don't know if you saw in the last 2 days, and she has said, yes, the movie is total fan service. And that they had 6 months less preparation than they did.
You know, what would have been nice if they would have, I've got some issues with editing, I'll talk about it in a minute.
She's the one who's edited his other movies, his Mission Impossible, the Star Trek. She said yes. The one critique she will accept, yes, it is a lot of fan service. The other one is that she actually edited while they were filming. She would be basically in a room or a tent right next to filming and edit. And they had 3 to 6 less months than they did on The Force Awakens. So they were on a time crunch trying to meet a release date from the jump. Right?
Can I say something real quick about that, by the way? I know people want things to come out a certain time. They want it to come out Christmas because the other ones have. Okay,
I think that's what killed Solo. Everybody says it's The Last Jedi killed Solo. I don't believe that. I think it's because it came out 5 months after The Last Jedi.
Yeah, it's a Christmas.
And it was Solo.
It is a Christmas event to me. Like
it is now. It used to come out in May, but no. Now
I love though. I mean, I get in from work, working away. I come home. I see Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. But anyway, all of that being said, it's the same thing with Cats. I know Cats and Star Wars are very different, but Cats, I don't know if you saw the news. They had to re-release the film because there are scenes in the film where they forgot to do the full digitization on Judi Dench's hand, and you see her wedding ring and a human hand on her cat form. And they got interviewed about it because they re-released it, and they even said they were like, okay, if you go to the theater and it's still showing the other one, please let us know. They've got the old digital form. We need to ship them or broadcast a new one to them, whatever. That being said,
all 2 people that are going to see this. Why are you talking about fucking Cats?
Because it's the same argument that I have with Star Wars. Why are you rushing it? Why?
They're trying to make a release date.
But
they originally were going to release the other one that May, and they put it off to December, The Force Awakens, so it gave them a little bit of breathing room. But they're always trying to make a release date because they have those dates, those theaters booked, and that's when they're going to go. I don't know. There are 3 years separating them in the original trilogy. There's only 2 years apart separating these. It's not a lot of time for these movies that are huge. These are world-building movies. So, Rise of Skywalker. Here's how I feel about it in a nutshell. Like I said, you can turn it off if you want to. We're about to talk about spoilers. Here's how I feel about it. It is, yes, it's a total hand job. Every critique you've ever read about it is true. It's fan service. It's a total hand job. However, I kind of enjoyed it. There's parts of it I really enjoyed. But my big issue with it, and I agree with Ketterman, there are no real stakes. So there's a scene where you think they may have killed Chewie. Yeah. Or they may have killed Chewbacca. They should have killed Chewbacca.
Yeah.
They killed Han.
Yeah.
In The Force Awakens. Now, if you didn't want to kill Chewbacca, because Chewbacca is one of those characters that's real easy to have different people play.
Yeah.
Is real visible. That's Chewbacca, right? Yeah. Well, it's not like you got to get Harrison Ford to play Han Solo every time.
Well, and they even make an allusion to it early in the film. It's always easy to spot a Wookiee.
That's Chewbacca. I understand that's important for Star Wars. You don't want to kill Chewbacca, kill Poe Dameron.
Yeah. Who was supposed to die anyway.
And in the first Force Awakens, they liked him so much that they put it. And I'm glad he made it through the trilogy. I like Poe Dameron. There are no stakes in that effing movie. No one dies. at no point do you feel like it's over for anyone.
Here's, by the way,
it was a little sad. People got a little choked up, but I think they killed off Carrie fucking Fisher. I'm sorry, they killed off Princess Leia. Carrie Fisher died of her own.
Real quick,
her own
real
volition.
quick, Disney. Real quick, we don't think you actually killed Carrie Fisher.
No, and that's very sad. And she went way too early. And I'm sorry for her family and her friends. And I'm a huge Carrie Fisher fan. Carrie Fisher, who probably should be remembered for her writing more than Star Wars, but life isn't
By the way,
fair.
real quick, I want to say this because this is going around some of the things, and this is only vaguely, but you mentioned her writing. So anyway, you're talking about Carrie Fisher's writing before we took a little break there. But Carrie Fisher's writing, there's a biography of Carrie Fisher that just came out, and I'm blanking on the name of the author, but she uses a snippet of a quote and actually name checks Harlan Ellison, one of my favorite authors, and makes it sound like he was being critical and saying she used a ghostwriter. And by the way, if you read that biography, I know a lot of people are Carrie Fisher fans, the biography is pretty decent. Be careful with that part of that book, because if you read the full Harlan Ellison critique, he does say the line, "This feels like it's not written by an actress." His actual critique was that Carrie Fisher wasn't an actress, she was a writer who happened to act.
I agree with that. And I was about to say, she ghostwrited for people.
Well, and that was his entire argument. But this particular biography, and I'm forgetting the name of it.
Were they alluding that she said that she was she
had a ghostwriter? It's
but
what they
didn't, did she?
No, and that's what he was. But if you read his if you read the full review, it makes it obvious that saying basically you can almost hear her. She has the heart and the chutzpah of a writer. Mm-hmm. But people will see it and think, oh, she's an actress, she used a ghostwriter. And that's what his argument was that she was a true writer, but people have taken one or two lines out of his review out of context, and I said, oh, Harlan Ellison accused her of having a ghostwriter. And so if you've read that biography, I wanted to say that, because I agree with you. What is it? Postcards from the Edge?
From the Edge, yeah.
Phenomenal writer. So anyway, yes, we lost Carrie Fisher too soon. Back to your point about there being no stakes.
There are no stakes.
There's
no chicken. There's no bacon. There's no protein to be had.
So I've seen the movie a couple times now. I went and saw it myself, and now I took my son, and he loved it. And by the way, if you're critical of any Star Wars film, any Star Solo, any of, I don't care, Last Jedi, whatever, find you a 6 to 10-year-old that has never seen it. They can see other Star Wars films, but if it's their first time seeing, and I'll tell the story because it made me actually enjoy Rise of Skywalker more than I did when I first saw it. I saw more errors the second time I saw it, but I was with my son, and I know we said we'd do some spoilers now. There's a scene where Poe Dameron is pretty much giving a concession speech. Mm-hmm. He's saying, I thought we could do this. I thought everything, right. I thought we could make a difference. Maybe I was wrong. And then you hear, spoiler, Lando come on and say, there's always more of us than there are of them. And he raises the ship up, and sure enough, there's a fleet. My son stood up. We saw it at the AMC, the dollar theater, the old dollar theater.
Yeah.
He stood up. There was probably 20 people in the theater. And he went, oh yeah! And everybody in the theater just went, it was cool. Because my son had set, mouth agape, just, oh my God, it's Star Wars.
So he loved the movie.
He did. And by the way, and that's what I was going to say, it made me realize that all my critiques, and one of my critiques, by the way, is about the editing. Okay, so they fall into the quicksand, it's not really quicksand, that stuff. Yeah. Watch the opening, when they fall in, C-3PO is upside down. Mm-hmm. All you see is his legs sticking out doing this. The next scene, C-3PO's head is up and his torso is up. Now, C-3PO has a very distinct walk. He's not overly flexible. So you're telling me a flippin' Jedi, who we saw levitating, eating noodles earlier, is stuck in that, but a droid that has no mobility was able to flip himself completely around in the 2 seconds they cut away.
You mean the Jedi who basically fixes the angry snake monster's tooth later so that they doesn't...
By the way, the Mandalorian foreshadowed that.
Did it really? What did it say?
The episode, remember?
No.
Carl Weathers gets cut.
Yeah.
So
It did. It foreshadowed it the Wednesday before it came out.
Yep.
That episode dropped Wednesday, and then the movie came out Thursday.
And by the way, I was like,
I didn't realize what you were talking about.
Good.
And I'm talking about the tooth. It wasn't the tooth.
Oh no,
I just like being a smart ass.
The Bumble. That Bumble.
Fix that Bumble's tooth.
That being said, the other thing that I will out my critique is there's some bad edits in it that I noticed the second time. But I'm so glad J.J. Abrams brought transporting to Star Wars. It was due. And that's one of my big critiques. The fact that you can transport stuff with the Force now.
What did they transport?
The lightsaber.
All
that
stuff. Yeah.
And that's my entire thing.
James, this is how forgettable this damn movie is. I'm sitting here trying to remember, and I just saw this, December the 19th or 18th?
Dude, I saw it 3 days ago, so I'm a little bit more...
But we're today is the 3rd of January.
Yeah.
We're talking about 2.5 weeks. And I'm sitting here trying my best to remember what the hell you're talking about. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
And that's what got me about it was, I was like, okay, wait a second.
I don't even remember what you're talking about. When did they transport?
Remember, that's the entire final fight, because Rey's pulling the lightsaber back to strike down Palpatine, puts it back, and then literally it appears in... And don't get me wrong.
Yes.
You can totally get away with that. My problem with that is that, again, I'm going by Lucas saying...
Well, they did do it in The Last Jedi.
But I get it. But Mace Windu and all of them were supposed to be the ultimate Jedis. That they were the ones that knew how to use all the powers and all the healing. And you get snippets of that. Mm-hmm. Man, there's a lot of teleporting of stuff. And by the way, the fact that you can use the Force and your lightsaber will cut something in another place if you're talking to someone. And don't get me wrong. That is so minor of a critique, but it does make me kind of give me those moments. And I actually posted this to a Star Trek group. I'm like, everybody talks about how J.J. Abrams brought Star Wars to Star Trek. I am so glad Star Trek gave something back to Star Wars.
Can I go down a list of shit that bothers me about the movie?
Please do, because I've got more.
All right. So people got pissed at Rian Johnson for killing off Snoke midway through The Last Jedi. In their defense, I like the character of Snoke and would have liked to see more. You know what pisses me off even more about that? So they're just growing Snokes in jars.
Well, and not that they're just growing Snokes in jars. Like, yeah, you see those test tube Snokes over there.
There's a bunch of Snokes.
That being said, and I'm fine, show us one, this was a failed prototype. Like the scene in Aliens 3.
Yeah.
Which is not the best Aliens film. But
Aliens 4, Alien Resurrection.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. But it's an interesting movie.
It's an interesting, and that's an interesting scene.
Yeah, it's an interesting scene.
Of everything.
Not a great... I'll tell you, out of those 4, the least interesting one is a good one. They're all good.
Yeah.
In retrospect, they're all. But anyway, you were saying.
But no, I agree with that. Like, okay, wait a second. So you could clone one Snoke. Why do you just not have? Because Snoke had the Force. What? That being said, that's a
complete throwaway. Pisses me off. So you find out in the first 10 minutes. I'll give him credit. Rise of Skywalker moves like Speedy Gonzales.
Oh yeah. And still is 2.5 hours.
And it's not 2.5 hours. It's not. I timed it. Oh. It's a bunch of shit at the front of it and a bunch of shit at the end of it. What are you going to say?
I said earlier, I'd tell you what the ticket taker...
What did he say?
So I was going in, taking Silas. And the guy looked at Silas and he said, just FYI, with trailers and everything, this movie runs about 3 hours. And I said, okay. Yeah. And I looked at Silas and he used the restroom. And then he goes on, though. He goes... Of which about 25 minutes is really good content, 20 is pretty good, and the rest is a commercial. And I was like...
The whole movie? He was referring to the whole movie?
25 minutes of really good content, 20 pretty good, and the rest is a commercial. And
that's about accurate.
I literally went... I was walking, and I was like, man, I know he would get in trouble for saying that. That being said, I was like, that may be the best review
God bless him.
I saw.
Was it at the AMC?
I don't want to cost this individual his job. It was, but I literally was like, that's a fair critique. As the more I thought about it, because, well, you said you were going to go through.
Hold on, I'm not done.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm about to go on the list. So it moves like Speedy Gonzales. So we're okay with that. And by the way, I did not hate the movie.
No, but when you say something's going to be the end of a series or of a story. It's the same critique a lot of Star Trek fans have of Star Trek Generations. You can kill Captain Kirk. That's fine. Killing Captain Kirk by having his death be "I fell off a bridge," which the original script just had him be vaporized, which also would have been bad. But shouldn't an epic story end epically?
I don't understand any of this shit. So he's he's out looking for the Emperor. Somehow there's a transmission and the Emperor's out there. Why does he even let it out that he's out there? Who gives a shit? And
well, he's in this really hard place to find unless you're a goth guy that wants to hang out in a soccer stadium.
Basically. Let me fit. No, we're not there yet. We're not. Give me a second. So
Do it to it, brother.
And my biggest fear, and I said this to many of you, was about JJ doing the third one. I was like, oh, he's going to be safe. I just hope he doesn't do Return of the Jedi. Son of a bitch, if he didn't even die, he brought back the fucking Emperor. All right, which sounded cool. And I thought, well, maybe they'll play into it because JJ gave props to the prequel. So in the third one, Palpatine talks about Darth blah, 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 who learned how to
Darth Plagueis, right?
Darth Plagueis, he learned to get through death, right?
Yeah.
Or past death. So
why wouldn't you make the ultimate bad be Darth Plagueis? Like have him just be manipulating
the whole time.
Palpatine.
And he's the one,
Palpatine and Snoke and all of them, and Dooku and all of them. And
it was always Plagueis. Yeah, well, I don't understand why it wasn't him.
Or Plagueis.
I have met the actor.
Ian McDiarmid.
Ian McDiarmid. I did his panel at Comic-Con. He's a wonderful man. I'm glad he got to work. I'm glad he got to play the Emperor one more time.
And he plays it. He still plays it well.
And he did a wonderful. If you go on YouTube, look at Lexington Comic-Con, you can see my face light up when he does the Emperor's voice, and I actually say in front of a whole crowd, "I hope somebody got that. Did that just happen now?" Which is not what you want to. You try not to fanboy in my position. Anyway, what? So he finds the Emperor. The Emperor is some shriveled up shrimp. Yeah,
on a hoist.
On a hoist. No, dude. All right, thank you for reminding me. On a Hellraiser 2, it's straight out of Hellraiser 2. It's the one have you ever seen Hellraiser 2? It's the doctor who becomes a Hellraiser and he walks around. It's the same fucking gimbal thing that falls. So Captain Phasma is out of Phantasm. I truly believe JJ's a fan of Hellraiser, and I should tweet him and go, dude, did you watch Hellraiser 2 before you did the production design on that? Or somebody did? So he's on a gimbal in a hard-to-find planet where he's built somehow or another thousands of Star Destroyers, and though we've spent 9 movies trying to build a fucking Death Star and Starkiller Base to kill stars and planets or whatever, he's found out a way to just put a dick at the bottom of an old Star Destroyer. It's not the new Star Destroyer, it's the old Star Destroyers, which I appreciate. So he somehow put a big Star Killer dick underneath, right? It looks like a dick. A Star Killer dick under each Star Destroyer, right?
Which doesn't make sense, though. I mean, because if you flick it once, it explodes. So be careful.
If you flick me once, I mean, some people are but 2-pump chump Joe. So you got your flicking dick Star Destroyer, literally dick. I just can't. It's just a big penis. Anyway, so cut to, that's one problem I have. And then he's going to work for him, and he goes out and he says, well, Rey's going to be yada, yada, yada. We find another problem we have is I thought they did a pretty good job of saying Rey's parents are nobody. She just inherited the Force. Doesn't explain a lot of why she has so much powers. I get why JJ went, and spoiler alert, she's the Emperor's daughter, or granddaughter. Okay, that explains why she has so much power. Cut to back to the ending of the movie. I, somehow or another, would like to know, and Jesus, I don't know why this bothers me. So, he was off dead, half alive, building Star Destroyers with killer dicks underneath them. Killer dicks.
With, again, a goth team of people hanging out in a soccer stadium.
That's what I was about to say. Why could we not cut to one close-up of what those assholes look like? Because you're sitting there watching the movie thinking,
there's that one scene when Kylo Ren first shows up, and you see the one with the black leather kind of bandages all around her, but you don't know if that's what the rest of them look like or not.
Who knows? I have to go back and rewatch it. I was so pissed. I wanted to see, why can't we see who are these people? Are they all Sidious? I mean, are they? I mean, not Sidious. Are they all?
Snokes?
Yeah, are they all Snokes? What are they? Who created them? Where are they going? Have they also always worshipped the dark side? How did they all end up there? Why haven't any of these questions been answered? Why are they been hidden? How did they get hidden there? Where are they getting the resources to build all of these killer dick starships, right? Who's building them? Is it just the people in the soccer stadium? I'm with you. I have no fucking clue. Here's the thing Ketterman brought up. I want to give him a little credit. God, I'm passionate about this one thing. So, if she kills you, you get to go through her and live
And
through
all
her.
the Siths go into you.
All right. But if you wait 10 minutes, you get to take off her power and just be you anyway.
You know what? And this is going to make
That's so stupid.
Let me make a lot of people angry.
That's so
You know
fucking
what that ending
stupid.
is?
What?
That ending's already been done before.
What?
It's called Highlander Endgame. Go back.
I've
seriously.
never seen Highlander
Well, okay,
Endgame.
so Highlander Endgame. By the way, I hope that if nothing else becomes viral, let James making an argument that Last Jedi is just Highlander Endgame. Highlander Endgame. Duncan MacLeod gets introduced to the movie series. Connor MacLeod has been in hiding because he's basically Christopher Lambert's character has been in hiding because he basically took an oath saying he would no longer hurt any more thing, and he took some ancient Buddhist philosophy that the only way you can not hurt anything is basically to seclude yourself, so you don't even step on a blade of grass. And they've set up a way.
The Last Jedi.
So they've set up a way for immortals to do this, and basically they just put you constantly under, and the Watchers keep you safe. In Endgame, I think it's Kel is the name of the villain. Kel comes back, and he was a preacher who was driven out of the faith because he became immortal, and Connor was going to mentor him and it didn't work out. Connor's hit himself. Kel comes back and says, I'm going to get vengeance on him. He could have helped me more. He took my faith from me. He ends up coming to kill Connor. The movie plays out. Duncan MacLeod, who was the TV Highlander, Connor does one move. He says he's going to kill me and take all my powers because I have the powers of all the other immortals I've killed. If he does that, he will have ultimate power. He will have the prize. If you watch the first movie, that makes sense. And if you watch the third movie, he also has sorcerer powers by this point. He sets Duncan MacLeod up to do this thing to where it's they're sword battling, and Duncan says, I won't kill you, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, you have to kill me or he will. And Connor MacLeod executes this sword maneuver that forces you to behead the other person, and Duncan MacLeod kills him. At the last battle they have in the film, Duncan MacLeod is fighting Kel. Sword, bam, 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 bam. And then he takes his sword, and every time the sword passes in front of his face, you see a flash of Connor MacLeod within him. And it's, the two of them combined can stop Kel. The Last Jedi is Highlander Endgame.
Or the Rise.
I'm sorry, The Rise of Skywalker is Highlander Endgame. That being said, it's even almost goofier because everything else has already been so established. Like Highlander, none of the movies make sense outside of that.
Yeah,
movie.
They're not very good because
They're
they're
outside
all
of that
done by
movie. Yeah. Because I mean, Highlander you can watch makes sense, but if you look at Highlander 2 and try to apply Highlander 1, 2, it doesn't work. They're each. You have to just say this is Highlander 3. Ignore everything else you know.
Yeah.
Star Wars never did that before, and I feel like Rise of Skywalker expects us to play that game a little bit because you're right. There's just so many other things.
And there's a soccer stadium of people cheering them on.
And there's only two of these things, but somehow these soccer stadium people show up. And then on top of that...
That's the other thing is like there's always, when it comes to the Sith, there's always the master and the apprentice.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense anyway if you know anything about the Knights of the Old Republic or whenever Yoda, when the universe was surrounded by Sith. I don't know. It's so stupid.
But
my last big critique is the ending. So she goes back to Tatooine. I understand why they have to end it in Tatooine, kind of. And she takes both of their lightsabers to bury them there. And it made no sense to me because I thought, Carrie Fisher, and I know it's Princess Leia, I'm sorry. Princess Leia was never on Tatooine.
Except to be made a slave by Jabba.
Yeah, that's it.
So I'm going to return this priceless artifact in her memory to the place.
So the editor actually explained a little bit of it, and I did understand it, that was where because she can't go back to Alderaan.
No.
And Rey is not necessarily, she's not going back there, she's just tracing her steps. and putting them together in a place where they were, I can't remember how she put it. It made a little bit more sense to me. I still disagree with Rey calling herself a Skywalker.
By the way, there was an excellent tweet, and I should have wrote down.
Which is how the movie ends.
Yeah,
who do you have a last name as Skywalker?
I'm Rey. Long pause. And by the way, that's my entire thing. Like, if I would have been in charge of filming that, by the time she said Skywalker, the lady would have been 15 feet away. Like, okay, she's Rey.
Rey. Yeah. I'm Rey. Did you say Doom Buggy?
No, and that's one of my things. I love it because it's one of those things. And anyway, there was a tweet, and I forget who it was. I don't think he's anybody major. Like, he's not a checkmark tweeter, verified. But his entire critique of the movie was he just posted like, J.J. Abrams' Star Wars universe. I'm Rey, looks into distance. Rey, Star Wars. J.J. Abrams. Because, of course, the next thing is directed by J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would have been just as good. And then somebody posted back, and I alluded to it earlier. What's your name? I'm Rey. Long pause. Misa Ray Binks. And I was like, that would have worked just as well. I would have been, there you go.
So what are your problems? Quick.
My problems are...
Where are we at? Like hour 48?
My problems are actually, we get Lando back, and Lando's nothing. I mean, Lando doesn't play...
He plays the same role that he did in Return of the Jedi. He brings the fleet.
But that also doesn't play any real... Like, there's the entire scene, which viewed one way is creepy. I mean, like...
Oh, of him asking the lady to...
she says, where are you from? Yeah. And he goes, I'm Gold System.
Yeah.
And where are you from? I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God.
Let's go find him.
There's a... which I was like, oh, that would actually be... I'd watch that spinoff. Mm-hmm. Billy D. Williams as Lando using his old scoundrel connections to try to find where these kids are from. That are now, I was like, God, that's really interesting. But I was like, that scene doesn't play right. Do you know why it doesn't play right? Editing. And I don't even know if the scenes were filmed. If you buy the novelization, the script, or the visual guide,
mm-hmm.
It explains why Billy D. Williams even went with Mark Hamill. Why would he leave Cloud City? He was the administrator there. He was supposed to go back there and keep it safe. Mm-hmm. That was part of his thing. All that was explained in the script. He had a daughter that was taken by the First Order because who did the First Order target? Anybody that helped the rebellion. They were going to take something from you. That was, and if you buy the visual companion, is what somebody recommended to me, because it goes into detail about the reason he went with Luke and left everything he knew to go on the quest with Luke was hoping he could find the daughter that was stolen from him
by the Empire, not the First Order.
As the First Order rose.
Oh, okay.
When they stopped using clone soldiers and they started abducting children.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, God, that would have made that scene 400 times better.
Yeah.
And if you don't read the visual companion, the script, blah, 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 you're never going to know that, and it's always going to play as a...
Yeah, it is a little creepy. I totally agree. Here's the other thing. Her kissing... kissing Kylo Ren. I looked in the middle of the theater. Clay was to the left of me, Christy was to the right, and said... Did anybody forget that motherfucker is a mass murderer? He's a sociopath. Well, and then of course he dies, gives his life force to her, and he dies.
Well,
for some sort of redemption.
Some people have made the argument, well, by then he's no longer Kylo Ren. He's back to being Ben. And I'm like, okay, you can make the argument. My argument actually is they wasted that bloody character.
I agree.
Because I'm with you. In The Force Awakens, I'm like, Kylo Ren will never be Darth Vader. I think going into this one, I was
he doesn't need to be. He's a different kind of villain.
Well, and that's what I mean. Going into this one, I bought Adam Driver and I couldn't tell what he was going to do. Like, I could guess. I didn't think he was going to ever go completely dark or anything.
After, he already killed his dad.
Yeah.
Pointing that out.
But, okay, so
what's the other thing that bothers you? Come
on. I think there's just... I mean, to be honest, like I said, and again, it sounds like I hate it. I did enjoy it for what it was.
I enjoy it for what it is, but it's a mess of a movie.
It's a mess of a movie, and that's what I keep going back to is, you got, big spoiler.
It's his Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yes.
In fact, I think Into Darkness may be better, because at least Into Darkness had one good villain.
Yep. And that's what I will say. I agree with that. That's actually a good way to look at it. Because
Peter Weller is a great villain. That movie did not need Khan.
No.
And it damn sure didn't need Benedict Cumberbatch playing Khan.
Which allegedly, by the way, there's 2 Star Trek films in the work, not counting the one if
Tarantino's not going to do one.
Yeah.
He said I'm leaning toward not doing it.
Yeah. But there's 2 allegedly in the work outside of if that he ever does one. And I was like, I don't know what those are going to be. I'm interested. I'm excited. It's a good year for Star Trek coming out. 3 series will be launching. Picard, Discovery Season 3, and then Lower Decks. Anyway, that being said, I just look at him like, man, you have so much going on and so much you could do. And I love the fact John Boyega and who's Poe Dameron? Oscar Isaac are trolling Disney online saying, can we just be gay? I mean, they're having fun with the fact that obviously there's... And then there's
they have something going on.
There's so many questions left unanswered by the end of the movie. So you're telling me you're wrapping up the Skywalker saga and allegedly closing out these characters. We never find out, like, I think they did a lot of setup for DJ from the second one. We never know what happened to him.
And we never will.
Which is tragic, because I would, again...
They didn't particularly kill off Captain Phasma.
No.
You think he is, but I thought she was. They didn't bring her back for this, which I thought was kind of odd because JJ is the one who created her.
Yeah, and to be honest, she's a compelling, like, why is she in the silver armor?
She's in, oh shit, I can't think of that new show. Not Rebels, the other.
Resistance?
She's in Resistance.
There's just so much that I can point to that just doesn't set well with me. And again, it's not that that's not real Star Wars. I'm not one of those people. But it's like, you didn't answer my question. You gave me, okay, I went in for dinner, and you gave me a salad, and then you skipped to dessert. And I was looking for something in the middle.
There are no steaks in that movie.
And that's what I was about to say.
You did not get steak for dinner.
There was no steak.
You got no steak.
I got a baked potato, and it was a little overcooked.
Yeah, and no butter, no sour cream. You're like, where the fuck are the chives?
Yeah, and
you need chives? I want chives. This is Star Wars.
And I asked for Diet Coke, and they did we only have Diet Pepsi.
Oh, no. They piss on them. Piss on them, sir.
And that's what it felt like. And I guess that's really what it gets to, is that they did a great job. J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson both, I will argue, in their own way, they entered a universe where we loved Chewie.
There was no way you were going to succeed 100%.
No, but we loved Chewie. We loved Luke. We loved Han. We loved Lando. I love Lando. Lando's my all-time favorite character.
Right.
That being said, and they managed to do it. Poe Dameron.
I agree with you. And people Finn, bitch about Rey. I don't know. I think the third movie's Rey's least interesting movie.
Yeah.
Same thing about John Boyega. I now understand as an actor he got more things to do. But, okay, so he's force sensitive, and that explains why he took off his helmet and no longer want to be a stormtrooper, but...
Which, I guess a little bit to Rian Johnson.
Yeah, Rian Johnson.
A little bit of nod to Rian Johnson's argument, which is good. But no, I think that's really it, is they did something pretty phenomenal, which I guess we can lead into kind of closing up with some of the things we did like. I think, and some of it is fan service that I actually enjoyed, I think... the new movies managed to introduce new characters, because I'll be honest, maybe it's because I knew he was going to go evil, or maybe it's because I knew where they were going, but the prequels never really made me care too much about Anakin.
I agree. They never
and even
got
Obi-Wan,
Anakin.
and by the way, Ewan McGregor, phenomenal actor, but I was always like, nah, okay. I mean, there's.
I agree with you on Anakin. Anakin is not a compelling character in the trilogy whatsoever. In the prequels
and I'm not one of the people that's going to blame any of the actors that played Anakin. My son is going back. He's now obsessed with the Clone Wars, so I'm watching those with him. I'm having some fun with it. But even in those, I'm like, can we just... Anakin went off and did his own thing again? How could this ever go bad? So anyway, all of that being said...
What do you like about Rise of Skywalker?
I think the new trilogy, including Rise of Skywalker, I never stopped caring about those characters.
Agreed.
I want
think,
Finn.
and I think
want,
JJ deserves the credit for establishing all those characters.
I think, and that's it. So I can say Rise of Skywalker was aggravating, and will I watch it again? Yes, I'll watch it again. Did I mention I watched every Star Trek, and some of those are lemons? I'm talking TV series and everything.
Dude, Insurrection.
Man, I don't know. Insurrection is really, really bad. I sat down and I watched Nemesis again.
It's not good either.
And I was like, you wanted to make Wrath of Khan. And I realized, you can say what you will about J.J. Abrams' take on Wrath of Khan.
It's better than Nemesis.
It may still be better than Nemesis. And it was sad, because that's how the Next Generation cast ended up going out.
I know.
Until we get Picard. But anyway,
so get back to your story. We're talking about Star Trek.
So
I mean, Star Wars.
I think
which one has Wookiees?
I think
the Borg. How did the Borg end up on Darth Sidious's planet?
I think that's so fascinating. I think that they create characters we care about. What Rise of Skywalker did that worked, and some of it is fan service. Spoiler alert: Han Solo coming back as a Force ghost type thing.
Yeah, no, he's not a Force ghost. We get Mark Hamill. Spoiler alert: is a Force ghost. What we get for Han
is a memory.
Is a memory.
And that's did Carrie Fisher activate the memory when she did whatever she did? Spoiler alert: Carrie Fisher is what caused. I'm doing it because you did it. Princess Leia, actually General Leia.
General Leia. I remember when she was a princess. She'll always be royalty to me.
But General Leia, basically, is what causes, spoiler alert, at one point one of the two deaths.
Adam Driver
of Kylo Ren is caused by.
Yeah, by his mother.
But does that trigger the memory?
I don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter. But it's that scene I know was 100% fan service, especially the way it ended. But God,
why are you hitting this when the audio people are listening to it going, sorry. What's going on here? I'm
punching a thing of meat. What you don't know is every time we're filming, we're reenacting the scene from Rocky. We're punching meat. But the scene that worked on me, and I rolled my eyes at myself at the same time I was enjoying it, because I'm like, I know it's fan service. But Adam Driver, I think, actually does some pretty good acting.
I agree.
Opposite Harrison Ford. And he does this scene again. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Han Solo reaches out, touches his face like he did right before he died the last time, and says, "You do." And then he says, "Dad, and Harrison Ford answers, "I know."
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm like, God, it worked on me, and it should have. That is pandering, but I was like,
oh, I agree.
It worked. That
worked
scene
on
worked
me
on
too.
me.
It's a good scene.
Lando was misused. I think they didn't do enough with him. They cut too much from the script that would have been obviously pops. They thought it was relevant to put in the visual guide for the movie. They put all that information in the visual guide, left it out of the actual film. That being said, when Lando does appear and he gives that speech, but then it cuts to him and he does the whoa, which is even in the trailer. I was like, oh God, it's Lando! And he even said earlier in the film, "My flying days are behind me." It's all pandering, but those examples are pandering. That I will be honest, they worked on me. Did I want more Lando? Yes. I think if you watch the movie, the fact Lando features in the trailer, probably 2 out of the really 3 scenes that he's in are in the trailer.
Yes.
Is aggravating. That being said, they brought back my favorite character. It's kind of the way I feel about Star Trek Generations. Yeah, they took Kirk out terribly, but I got to see Captain Kirk on the big screen one more time.
I enjoyed the movie. I think it's a mess. And I'm sticking with that criticism. I'm going to rewatch it hopefully in the next week or 2. I'd like to see it one more time on the big screen. I want to pay the extra money and see it in the big screen, because I want to see some stuff that I missed. I want to rewatch that whole ending, although I don't think it's going to help me any.
Well, no, but I agree with you. And the more I think about it, it's and again, the Twitter response I'm fascinated by, and the fact that so many people are angry at it, that are now elevating the one that other people were angry at before. But I think I'll be interested to see how it ages.
It's the worst of the 3.
And I almost wonder if it's not going to be viewed as arguably maybe the worst in series. But I think it's the inconsistency. And like I said, I don't think there's any stakes. And there's this great tweet that agrees 110% with you and Ketterman that there are no stakes. And the way they did it was they basically did it as one of those conversation movie man acting as if they're talking in the film like, oh my god, Chewbacca died. Me, no, he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
No, he did totally. 2 seconds later, just kidding, he's not dead. I knew he wasn't dead.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't going to kill him. And it's like, oh no, C-3PO lost his memories. He'll never get it back.
Oh, and they brought him back.
And it'd be like, oh no, you're going to bring him back.
And they did it, and that's another one that's a bad scene. I want to look at my friends one last time. After they have given that robot nonstop shit for the last hour.
Yeah.
Nonstop shit. Don't get me wrong, I love that.
Yeah.
But that scene is out of place with how they've what they've done with 3PO the last 45 minutes.
One other thing I must admit that I did like, and I should have, Baba Frick.
Baba, that's the best character in the damn movie.
I love Baba Frick. Baba Frick, give me a movie right now. I don't care about continuity. Screw it. Baby Yoda, Baba Frick.
Yeah, that's the best.
Reprogramming droids, going on adventures.
Everybody, yeah, I think that's a much more interesting character than the little droid who's scared.
Oh, D0. Yeah, D-O or whatever. D0.
Listen, B.O. can have his own. Baba Frick. No, I completely agree. It's the best new character.
And by the way, and again, it doesn't make any sense, but when What's Her Name, who is a love interest that we just meet for Cameron Poe and gets 2 whole scenes, Cameron Poe, where'd that come from? Poe Dameron.
Poe Dameron. Who's played by...
Oscar Isaac.
No.
Oh, you're talking about the love interest.
Felicity, which was created by J.J. Abrams.
But that scene's cool and all of that stuff, but I could care less about her to some extent, because I think there's some of that's forced. Here's the chip that can get you off the planet that I just said is my only way off of here. That's another thing the Twitter person said. Okay, I'm going to take it. Later on, you're still going to somehow show up in a battle when I need you, even though you just told me this was your only way.
There are no
stakes.
There's no weight to that movie. That movie has no...
That being said, it makes no logical sense why all of a sudden in the battle she has a conversation and at the very end Baba Frick just pops up and goes, whee! But I still... And by the way, my son did the same. And I didn't realize how much fun it was that we get one last shot of Baba Frick in a battle for no reason until my son went, oh, that's cool.
It is cool.
Because I'm like, Baba Frick.
Character.
So I agree. I think... Maybe, like I said, there's no stakes because there's too many Deus Ex Machina. We destroyed that little probe thing. Hey, wait, it turns out Dio, who hung around with the guy that had it forever, had some information in his databanks. And obviously, he doesn't have the C-3PO hang-ups, so there was no reason for us to put C-3PO through that. And that becomes it's the same thing as that planet.
Yeah.
We needed something for C-3PO to do.
I agree. All right,
go back
man.
and watch it. But anyway, so if you haven't seen it and you're thinking about seeing it, I actually go see it.
I mean, if you haven't seen it and you're listening to us now, we're almost at hour 2. Obviously, you've probably watched the movie, and you're a huge fan of Bonehead. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you. That being said, please go out and watch Rise of Skywalker and let us know. And if you didn't like anything that we just said or you have a counter argument about it, specifically about how we shit on Rise of Skywalker, but we like it, or how we kind of tore apart part of The Last Jedi, but that's my favorite out of the new trilogy.
Yeah, and again, credit to J.J. Abrams, and actually credit to
I enjoyed the first 2. I really think Rise of Skywalker is just a mess.
All the authors that worked on all of these, you did manage to create characters, be it Baba Frick. And by the way, Baba Frick, if you're a Harry Potter fan, look up who does the voice of Baba Frick. But you look at all of these things, all of this stuff, crap on the new series if you want to, crap on the prequels. I do crap on the prequels. But what I've came to terms with the fact that Episode 4, 5, and 6, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, are going to be Star Wars for me. And these others are Star Wars too. I'm not gatekeeping. I'm not saying these aren't real Star Wars. They are. These movies now are my son's Star Wars.
Yeah.
As he watches...
And they may be mine, sons as well. I don't know.
As he watches the ones I watch, and he loves, by the way, we mentioned Rogue One earlier. My son loves... If I say pick a movie to watch, Star Wars movie to watch, he'll pick Rogue One. So there's something about Rogue One that works for him. But if I put in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, he watches them. He enjoys them. But for him, and maybe it's because of the magic of seeing it on the big screen, Rey, Poe, Kylo, all that stuff is his Star Wars. And my daughter's too. I'm not being sexist. My daughter loves Rey. went as 1 year for Halloween as Rey. Loves that character. So I think that is, if I'm going to end this on a positive note, I honestly think, as bad as things as I may have, or as many things as I said, man, I wish they wouldn't have edited that out, or I wish they would have left that in for context so that scene wouldn't be creepy with my hero. Star Wars goes on, man. I think that's really it. And I think Mandalorian is telling us that. I think we're getting all of that stuff. And so I guess my ultimate critique of it is... You keep repeating yourself. My ultimate critique of all this stuff
you said that more than once.
Say
it!
Star Wars is going to keep going, and if it's not for me, guess what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Now, that's something I came to terms with too, is that the prequels aren't for me.
So if you're in a theater and you threw your hands up and went, Star Wars is dead to me, don't go back.
Don't go back.
It's not
Somebody
for you
else
anymore.
Go back. Absolutely.
It's not, and that's fine.
And if you think it's dead to you, check out The Mandalorian. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. But if you don't, if you're like, well, Baby Yoda's just made to sell toys, watch the prequels.
And if you want to watch something that's closer to it, watch Rogue One. Watch Rebels. Rebels, I think, is a great tie-in if you're a fan of 4, 5, and 6.
So, and that's the end of the day. That's what it is. Star Wars is not over. We already know we're getting...
It'll never be over.
3 more years, we're getting, what, another trilogy?
Hopefully, they I don't think they've got it all locked down yet.
But, quite frankly, we know, especially now that Mandalorian, and I know we're getting a Cassian series.
I don't know yet.
I think that's what they were saying, that the guy and who played Cassian in Rogue One is going to have his own series on Disney Plus. And, of course, they're going to keep making content for Disney Plus. Why wouldn't you? Mandalorian was the most streamed.
Was up until The Witcher the most streamed one, yeah.
And allegedly, I think we live in cool times, man.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you so much for listening to our episode. We may do some more Star Wars later. Actually, if you want us to go back and do Rogue One and Solo, let us know. We'd like to know. If you don't want us to do it, that's fine too.
Yeah, but honestly, let us know what you think. And again, we're being honest. You want to get on Facebook, go to our website or go to our our Facebook page. Send us an essay on where you think we went wrong. And as long as you make a cogent argument, as long as you're not like, oh, you just feel that way because you're...
Kojak?
Because
make sure you do your MLA.
Not stalkers. Anyway.
I can't figure out APA.
As long as you make a cogent argument that doesn't consist of, you just feel that way because you're a beta cuck or something. I don't know what those are. Look it up, dude. I got called...
We're at 2 hours and 10 minutes. Are you going to wrap this up?
I got called one of those because I actually said I enjoyed that I enjoyed The Last Jedi.
Are you going to wrap this up?
Give us an argument for where we're wrong. If you got a good point, we'll probably concede our point.
See you next week on Bonehead.
Or not.